Today's episode is brought to you by elitefts.com. Founded in 1998 with the primary aim to live, learn, and pass on. Please help Elite FTS support this mission by smashing the like button, leaving a comment, sharing with a friend, and thinking of us for your training needs. If you can put it in a gym bag or load weights on it, Elite FTS has it.
What's going on? I'm Dave Tate, and we are broadcasting from the middle of the Elite FTS weight room, where the underground still thrives and you're part of the crew. It's time to sit down, keep it real, and cut the bullshit. Welcome to Table Talk. What's going on, guys? We are back with another episode of Table Talk. Today's episode is sponsored by Power Rack Strength. If you don't know Power Rack Strength, check them out. They provide consulting. It's Brian Carroll's company, so he provides consulting. He provides CBD, dyslexia, right? Bomb, and I got a good story about that. And then his book, The Gift of Injury, I do believe is something that everybody should have in their library. Right here, Gift of Injury. To be completely transparent, I probably have 15 copies sitting in the office over there because back injuries come up so often with people that I just, here, take this and read it, because as we'll probably talk about later in this podcast, eventually everything comes around injuries to some point. It gets to a point, at least with the lower back, with a lot of us that have been around for a while, is how much time do you really want to extend speaking to somebody that doesn't really even going to listen in the first place? So what I like with Brian's book is it's very comprehensive, and his comeback was very, very good. When I say comprehensive, I mean easy for a meathead to understand, not written in a language that you're not going to be able to get. So even if you don't have back injuries, you should still read the book because it's going to help you to prevent what they are. Now, as far as the CBD balm and the droppers actually helped me with my sleep, which is a funny story because outside of Tylenol, PM, and Xanax, nothing's really ever helped me with my sleep. So people are like, here, try this, it'll help. You know how that works? Like, okay, fine. And then you're up all night pissed off. Now you're mad that it didn't work, and you're wondering if you can go still take the Tylenol PM in the first place, to where, you know, his stuff actually did work. Now the balm, it's a little bit different, where I've been like a balm guy for decades, to the Blue Horse liniment, right? So I was big at Westside. Then we used to go to the horse supply store, and you go through the shelves. Like, okay, Bigel oil, there's pink shit, there's blue shit, there's the black stuff. You got to try the back, which is like Equiblock. And then you build up a tolerance. So there was a time several years ago, this shows you that my stupidity never goes away, where I'm going to make my own. So I there was the numbing agent,
like lidocaine.
It's like lidocaine gel, and I mixed it with DMSO because I figured it would push it through faster. Then I put a little capsicum in there as well. This is bad. Busted up a few hydrocodone. Got it real soft, kind of like, hey, let's just, what can this really hurt?
We'll see, yeah.
And just kept putting shit in there. Probably put a D-ball in there just for good measure. And it rubbed it on for a couple days. I had a fucking infection.
Get the antibiotics.
No, it's bad when you got to go to your doctor and he's like, what the hell? And you're like, man, you don't want to know.
Tell him it was a burn.
Exactly. Now, had I had this, this actually helps more than all the other stuff, but I will use that with other heat liniment that I do have. So this is powerrackstrength.com, I believe is the website. The link is in the description box. If you use the discount code TableTalk2023, you'll receive 35% off your order. So head over to powerrackstrength.com, pick yourself up the book, the liniment, the balm, whatever else is in there. Hire Brian as a consultant. Support Power Rack Strength. Discount code Table Talk 2023. Now we're going to go on to the show. My guest today is Anthony Oliveira. That's pronounced that correctly?
Yes, sir. And
I don't want to go into a big intro. We're just going to say that your totals in single-ply 2305, 2505, and multi-ply. I want to talk more about the coaching aspect and your journey aspect more so than the specific lifts, because I think that's what the people listening are going to really get the most out of, where the squats are insane. you know, the multiply at 11:10, but then the single ply at 10:36 has probably got a pretty good story with that too,
Yeah.
like why that came about and so forth. And you started your strength journey, I believe, in hockey, right?
Correct. Yeah.
So did the weight training start then?
Yeah. So, well, first of all, I just want to thank you for having me on, dude.
Yeah.
I really appreciate it. I have like just a small anecdotal story. I was on a porch in Dover, New Hampshire in like 2013 ish. I had never done a powerlifting meet before. I was training, and I watched a video that you had done about like genetic potential or something. And I said like, I'm gonna meet this guy. I didn't even know where Westside was. I think I thought it was in California or something. I had no fucking idea. And I was like, I am gonna fucking meet this guy. I'm gonna train at Westside. I want to do this. I had never done a meet before. So this is wild to be here. So thank you so much for having me on. I appreciate it. It's a really cool thing. Yeah, I played hockey my whole life. So I was like, I was lifting weights when I was like 13, but like I was an athlete who was made to lift weights. Like I didn't like training. I liked playing hockey. So I didn't have like a love for a barbell at all. Like that was something I had to do in the off season to play my sport. But I didn't.
What age did you start playing?
I was on skates when I was 2.
Okay.
But I started playing when I was like 7. Played for 13 years, 2 years of junior hockey, 2 years of college. I was a goalie. I think that non-individual, like team sports, but like pitcher, catcher, goalie, it all kind of lends itself to powerlifting in a way, same way that like track and field does, because you're on a team, but if you fuck up, everybody sees it. So you're like, people help you, but like you have to save yourself in the moment.
Because of that position?
Because of the position, right? You're
Okay.
you're a
Yeah,
goalie,
yeah.
you let in a goal, everybody fucking sees it. Like you bomb out on bench, everybody fucking sees it. But you have like your crew and your team, but they can't, like the center of your hockey team can't help you on a breakaway that you have to stop. So I feel like it kind of lent itself to that, where you're kind of like, you have the people supporting you, but when it comes down to it, like it's on you, motherfucker. Like you have to do this. So I think that's sort of something that I found to really enjoy about powerlifting, kind of like connected the dots.
When did the powerlifting, at some point in time, the weight training shifted from, you know, being something to help you with hockey to actually wanting to be.
So I stopped playing hockey my sophomore year in college, and I had like a pretty nasty drug addiction. I was by the end of it was like 147 pounds. I was homeless for a little bit, opiates. And when I decided to clean up, I started like kind of lifting weights, like Planet Fitness, and just like, cause I was like skinny fat all of a sudden. And, yeah, I just sort of like fell into it that way. Like I was like, I want to be strong. I want to look good. I want to, you know, like I want to push my body in some way to like keep me out of trouble. And so that's how the gym started. Like
Now, was the opiate problem while you were still playing?
Oh yeah. Like I always partied.
Yeah.
Like I was the type of dude that was like, what do you got? Like, let's go.
Yeah.
Like I'm an extreme guy. And so it didn't really, in the party culture, that doesn't end well. Right. So, you know, I've got friends who didn't make it out, you know, who have passed away or whatever. And, so yeah, so I've put on like 100+ pounds since then. I was a skinny little homeless drug addict scumbag.
What got you out of that? Or what pulled you out of that hole? Because that's a dark hole.
Yeah. I had a weekend of partying, and I came back to this house I was staying at, and I had it was a Dilaudid, so it's basically like a morphine. And I'm like, all right, I feel like shit. I feel sick. If I put this up my nose right now and I'm not fucked up, but I don't feel sick anymore, I have a serious drug problem. You know what I'm saying? I'm going through withdrawals. And that's what I did. And I noticed it. I'm like, all right, fuck this. Like, I'm not a drug addict. I can't be this person. And my buddy locked me in his house for like 2 weeks. And kind of did that, went through like therapy and all that stuff. And I have I have a lot of people, trying not to get emotional when I talk about, but I have a lot of people that I don't talk to anymore that I owe like my life to, because if that kid hadn't been there, I don't know where I would be. I don't know how I would have gotten through it. But I like maintained my job the whole time, like living out of my car.
So what's this conversation look like? You tell this guy, you know, look.
Well, he knew. We worked together.
Yeah, okay.
So I went to him and I was just like, bro, I can't fucking do it anymore. Like, I can't, like, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to, like, dig myself out of this. Like, I don't have the tools to do this. And he was like, listen, I drink too much. Like, come stay with me. You don't have anywhere else to go right now. Come stay with me, and I won't drink, and you won't put anything up your nose. You won't take any pills, and we'll just get through it. And I was there for like 2 weeks, I think. And then, and he was wicked supportive. It was great. You know what I mean? It was awful. Like, you know, like all of those crazy, like all of that cliche shit, sweating through your shirt, puking, shitting, like the whole thing. My parents didn't really, they knew I was fucked up, but they didn't know like to what level. Mm-hmm. So I had to like call my dad and be like, hey man, like I'm an addict and I'm like 4 days sober. Mm-hmm. And I just want to let you know that's what I've been going through. And so they got me into therapy and stuff like that. And that was really helpful, but I lost a lot of friends, that I had partied with. And it was kind of this weird transition where you're kind of like, you think it's going to make life easier when you get off of shit, but it made stuff more difficult because suddenly I was working with a handful of guys that I used to go and party with, and I'm surrounded by it, but I can't be amongst it. And at that time, like right now, like you could bust out a bunch of pills right now and it would not bother me. Like you could do whatever the fuck you want. Don't bother me. Excuse me. But, at the time I couldn't be around it. So it made stuff very difficult that way. But I had basically burnt every fucking bridge, like in my family, like a lot of my long-term childhood friends, my brother-in-law, and I had to like rebuild all that shit. And it started with the gym, like creating a routine. I went back, I found my training book from when I played college hockey, and I just started on day one and just went through. And it was cool, like, you know, you're doing all the bro stuff, like kicking the shit out of yourself. Cause I felt so guilty for all of the stuff I had done, you know, like stealing from my parents, and my mom has MS. So stealing her painkillers, like just being a scumbag. So you feel bad. So you go in the gym and you kind of punish yourself. Mm-hmm. And I did that for like years as far as like my mentality in the gym. It took a long time for me to figure out that like, that's not the best way to get strong. But at the time, oddly enough, that's probably what I needed to do to like lay a foundation. Cause I was going in and do like 2-hour arm workout, 2-hour back workout, 2-hour like it was just rotate 7 days a week. And I just like fell in love with training. It became like obsessive because I was scared if I stopped doing it, I would go back to the other thing. Mm-hmm. And the other thing, the expiration date is not good for most people.
Yeah.
So since then, like I've got 12 years, no opiates. I've had 2 surgeries, no opiates, second degree burns, no painkillers, never taken any of it. Have it all in all my doctor's records that I won't take them.
That's awesome, dude.
Yeah, thank you. It's been like, I like judge people on how they react to me telling the story. Cause if they pull back, I'm like, oh, I guess you're fucking perfect. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, but if they, you know, congratulations, whatever, they understand that like you can make mistakes. And, you know, I'm not to sound cheesy, but I'm grateful for all that shit. Cause like without that, I would not be here. Mm-hmm. I would not have had the lifting career that I've had. I don't know where I would fucking be. So it's just like, it's like when people ask you, like, what would you change about your training? Yeah. And it's like fucking nothing. Cause it's got me here.
Well, it changes your perspective. You have, you know, you have a different perspective on everything. Yeah. Right. Because it was pretty much all taken away. Yeah. Or you didn't give a shit if it was all taken away.
Yeah. That whole like, well, I do drugs because I'm sad and I'm sad because I do drugs. Mm-hmm. That whole like vicious cycle is just like stuck in that. And, not to turn it into a woe is me thing, but like it was pretty fucked up for me, you know, at that point in my life. And the whole like powerlifting saved me thing that can get kind of like cheesy and corny. I do like fully believe that like, you know, lifting weights or fitness in general saved my life.
Yeah.
On whatever level, like maybe not like mutil-ply equipped powerlifting, but like taking care of my body and training physically made my mental better. And I believe it saved my life.
At what point do you think that, when did the opiates take control, right? So let's say you're looking back and you could go back and see what's happening. And then at a certain point, you made a decision that made it way worse.
Yeah.
Or if you had not made that decision, that might not have been the case.
Because
nobody plans to be this, right? You know what I'm saying? You don't grow up saying, dude, I'm going to end up.
Yeah. So it was, I broke my foot.
Yeah.
And so I was living in like this like 12 foot by 12 foot gazebo off of my parents' house, right? They're just letting their scumbag kid live there. Broke my foot. And so then I'm sitting there and I couldn't work, you know, kind of selling drugs and like haven't got like, you know, I've got my bottle of Vicodin and, you know, I'd be like, hey man, like I'll give you a gram of weed if you bring me a 6-pack over type shit.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden I'm just getting fucked up for 2 weeks because I can't do it. I'm in a cast. And I think that was the point where it was like, you get to that last pill and you're like, but I want another one. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so
and
that it went from partying to addiction.
well, yeah, all of a sudden it's like, it's fun. And then all of a sudden it's not fun anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, like you're lying and pretending that it is.
Mm-hmm.
And that specific time frame was like pretty dark for me, but it's like, you're so fucked up. You don't even realize it. Like my whole thing was like, it's like walking around, you're the guy with peanut butter on your face and you're the only guy who doesn't know you got peanut butter on your face. Like everybody looks at you and is like, look at this fucking idiot. Like, and I just think that I'm like going through life and nobody knows, but everybody knew I was a mess. So when I look back on it, I'm like, I was in a dark fucking place for sure. But I didn't really realize it until I stepped out. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right. So the training gets you on a different path, right? So
Yeah.
I'm always intrigued on how training has changed people's lives.
Sure.
Right? Because it's happened for more people than not. Let's put it that way, and at different levels. And then it can also become at a certain point toxic, right? It can get too high, to a certain level to where you got to dial the reins back on that. So the powerlifting, how does that? Because you're in your Planet Fitness or whatever it was, right? So how does powerlifting even come on the radar?
Dude, I walked into Planet Fitness one day and they were literally disassembling the dumbbell racks and taking the free barbells out of the building. And we were like, me and the kid I was training with, I was probably a little bit less than a year off of the dope. And I was like, all right, I can't fucking train here. This is ridiculous. Like, we need to be able to squat. And I didn't even know the importance of that, but I was like, I'm used to doing this, so fuck this. So we went to a health center type, is like attached to a hospital type of thing. And they have like a safety squat bar there, but like nothing else, like just regular shit. And I started doing just a 5x5 just because I wanted to get strong. I decided I had like gotten kind of strong, but I got kind of fluffy. And I'm going from like skinny 150-pound kid where I'd lie to myself, be like, well, I got abs, to like kind of fluffy 175-pound kid. And isn't that funny? Like,
the dope kid with abs, right?
Yeah. I was like, oh, I look good.
It's
I got abs.
Fucking all of them, right?
So I was like, I started doing like some fasting, some cardio to see if I wanted to go like the aesthetic route.
Yeah.
And I went into deadlift, and it was like I was supposed to pull 4 plates for 5. I think I usually could pull it for like a couple sets of 5. I pulled it for 2, missed the 3rd rep. I literally unloaded the barbell, put all the shit back, went to the locker room, changed, left, and went and got pizza. I was like, fuck this. Like, the numbers, like, it was finite. I could see the progress, and the body stuff was too like subjective. So I was like, oh, I just want to be strong. I don't care what I look like. And it shifted my focus. So I went to a 5x5, squatted 3 times a week, added 5 pounds each time. And then one of the days, it was squat, bench, row. And then the other day was squat, deadlift, overhead press. And it was ABA, then BAB, right? So the deadlifts, you would add 10 pounds and you would do 1 set of 5. Everything else, you add 5 pounds, do 5 sets of 5. So you're squatting 3 times a week, right?
Yeah.
And so, bro, dude, muscle confusion, right? The thing, right? So if I was supposed to do 300 pounds for 5 sets of 5, and I only got 3 sets, and the last 2 were like sets of 3 or something, I would try it again the next time I went in and squat. If I missed it again, I would drop back 15 pounds, start over, build back up. If I missed it that next time, I would change the variation to a front squat, box squat, wide stance squat. For a while, I did exhale squats, where I'd like go to the bottom, let all my air out, whatever. Yeah. So bench, I would do like close grip, wide grip, reverse. I was doing reverse grip bench back then. Like, I didn't even know what the fuck I was doing. I was like, how can I change this, right? So I was like conjugating my programming
in a way,
and I didn't even know it really. So that got me on like the powerlifting kick. And then my buddy, the guy who actually told me about Louie, gave me my first bench shirt and shit. He told me about a meet in Vermont, and I just signed up for it.
How'd that go?
So I programmed for myself. I found a Sweatt Fitness, Jordan. Is it Jordan? So he has like that template. It's old as fuck. You're probably like quoted in that somewhere. It's like, it's got like all sorts of like Louie quotes, and I'm sure you're in there too. Basically, I picked my number, like went off a 500-pound squat, and I went like 78% for 5 sets of 5, 82% for 5 sets of 5 on like the Monday, right? And I would slowly add it up and drop the reps down as I got close. So 2 weeks before the meet, I'd hit like 96% for a double. And I'm just like making this up. Like, I have no fucking idea. But it was the same setup, like Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, squat, bench, deadlift, and then bench again, I believe. Or the deadlift and the squat were switched. So one time I would go in and I would squat for the sets, and then I would rack pull. And then the next time I would go in, I would deadlift for sets, and I would front squat or whatever. And yeah, so my first meet at 220, I went like 505 squat. I think I benched 320. And then on a 4th attempt deadlift, they let me take a 4th attempt. I pulled 575.
Okay.
All raw, naked knee, like whatever. And it was like one of those things where I took my first squat, and between first and second, I was already talking about my next meet. I was like, I love this. This is the best fucking shit ever.
So as you're coming into that meet, because you've been around long enough and have helped enough people now that you know the questions I'm going to ask, right? Where, what was going through your head? Because one of the questions we get asked the most is, hey, look, I'm thinking about doing my first meet. What should I do, right? And it's such a broad question.
Yeah.
Here you just did, it was your first meet. So thinking back, what were some of the things that you did to be able to...
So I cut weight, first of all, like a dumbass.
Yeah.
And I did it via incline treadmill. So like just the worst possible thing you'd be doing. Going in, I was just nervous about like squat depth and like figuring out like how the sport worked. I had no one there to handle. I just showed up. I had no fucking idea.
Yeah.
They did rules meeting, and I literally they finished rules meeting, and I just squatted. I just started warming up, went to my last warm up, realized I was in the 3rd flight. So I was already all warmed up and had to like go through my warm ups the second time. Like, I had no help going through that. So for me, it was like, worst case scenario, I'm going to go and embarrass myself in front of a bunch of people I don't know. Best case scenario, I'll have a good day. But I went in there with kind of like really modest numbers. Like, I had squatted 525 in the gym, but I only squatted 505 at the meet. So I kind of did the right thing on some of the stuff. I opened my deadlift with something I had pulled for like 5 or 6 or whatever. You know what I mean? Like I was really conservative with my openers. But the thing was, like, I just had to do it. Because that's what I tell people now. They're like, when should I do it? It's like, just fucking literally pick one in 3 weeks and do it. Doesn't matter. I had gotten laid off from a construction job I was working like 3 or 4 weeks before it. And I was like, oh, I guess I'm not doing this, you know? And the girl I was dating at the time was just like, no, dude, like, you signed up for it. We paid for it. You're going to go fucking do it. Like, who cares? Like, you have to go do it. So I just kind of threw caution to the wind and made it happen. But I think I was so ignorant. Like, the internet didn't have as much of the powerlifting stuff. Like, Instagram wasn't a thing, really. So I think it was kind of like I lucked out. I was, like, ignorant to the pressure of, like, doing a meet. So I kind of walked in there, like, not super worried.
Well, I believe the 2 biggest things you did right, you know, where you decided to do it and followed through. Right. I mean, that's the first. I mean, that's anytime somebody asks me, it's the same thing. Just find one. Yeah. Pay the entry, and make the decision that you're going to do it no matter what. Yeah. You can break a fucking leg or a foot, you're still going to go bench. Yeah. You're going to go. You know, and then modest goals. Yeah. You know, keeping the goals. If you could have a goal to go 9 for 9, smoke everything. Yeah. Then because what happens during that day is you learn. Like you learn, maybe you shouldn't cut weight. Maybe you shouldn't cut weight doing that way. Maybe you need to figure out a different warm-up time. Like a lot of these things, I think it's trial by fire. Yeah. And you may as well make them as a beginner. Yeah. So you don't have to rely on a coach when you're actually strong to tell you everything. Because imagine the anxiety. Dude. You know, so you already have top anxiety at the highest level. Yeah, right? Yeah. So imagine if you've only done 3 meets before, but every decision's always been handled by your coach. Yeah, so that's like I think the fact that I coached myself through my first 2 or 3 meets, I think made me a better coach because I had to like do all the figuring out. I had to do all of the obsessive reading, and you know what I mean? I think coaching yourself through a meet, I think everyone should do it at least once. You know what I'm saying? Like figure it out. Like having a coach is great. Of course, like that's how I make my living. I want people to want coaches. Yeah. But I think it's important to kind of figure stuff out yourself. So I was actually in a Facebook group. It was like the Cube Method group, like forever ago. Or it might have been AJ's group. It might have been the Conjugate group. But Tony Barbasio, the big guy that passed away like last year, he was in there, and I just, I wrote in there like, oh, I'm doing my first meet. Messages me, gives me his number. He's like, call me. So I call him, and he's like, he's talking about, you got to do this and that and the other thing. And he tells me his numbers and what he's done and all this stuff. And then like halfway through the conversation, he just stops me, and he's like, so what are my numbers? And I was like, and he's like, I just told you, and you don't know them. So all that proves is nobody gives a fuck what your numbers are. They care how you treat people. And so he was like, and I've used that with people before, like clients and stuff, where it's like, hey man, like I'm probably the strongest guy that you've trained around or whatever. Do you know what my best squat is? And they have no idea. And I go, so like that proves to you that no one cares. You have to do this for you. And they're going to remember you for how you treat people more than what you lift. You know what I'm saying? Like they might, if you're at the tippity top, sure. But most everybody else, the bottom 99%, no one fucking knows. Yeah, but convince that to yourself 10 years ago. You see yeah. So it's we're all kind of told that on the upswing, and then we kind of realize it on the backswing, but in the middle, no, it don't work like that. No, you're kind of like your self-worth is kind of like connected to like how you do and like how people perceive you, and everybody cares what I lift and all this stuff, and 9 times out of 10, nobody even knows what's on the bar when they watch I would say they pretend like they care. You see what I'm saying? But because they're either jealous, sure, or mad, because you're stronger than what they are. Very few are actually happy for it, which is fucked up. No, it's more so like the people who are happy. Like I say, at a powerlifting meet, the only people who are fans of powerlifting are the people who are lifting in it. Everybody else at the meet, their favorite powerlifter is whoever they drove with to the fucking meet. Yeah. Like this isn't like a sport where there's like, oh, I have this favorite. Everybody who has a favorite powerlifter and there's a fucking poster in their locker or whatever lifts weights. Yeah.
and is a power lifter. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so no one really cares. You know, I just had that WPO meet. I did really well. I went 8 for 9 or whatever.
No, you had a hell of a day.
None of those were all-time PRs for me.
Nope.
You know what I'm saying? And,
No.
and so a lot of people are like, oh, you did crazy. You did. It's like, yeah, I looked good, technically sound, da-da-da-da-da. No all-time PRs. 50 pounds off my best total.
Mm-hmm. But it was a solid day.
It was a solid day.
I mean, to anybody that was, I was watching it. So anybody that's following it's like, fuck, this is a solid day right here.
Yeah, I needed that one.
These are solid attempts.
Yeah.
You know, they may not have been what you were looking for, but they were what you had that day. Mm-hmm. You know, and that's the best you can do is to milk the best. And that's maturity in the sport.
Dude.
You know,
it took me a while to get there.
That's what I'm saying. It's like, this is a hell of a day, man. And it's noticed.
Yeah.
You know, and I noticed it. I mean, people from the outside noticed that.
Yeah.
It's like, this is fucking more awesome than you think it is.
Yeah.
Because it's ego check. There's a lot of things, you know, because you're pissed, but you can't be that mad for that long.
It's kind of less stressful too.
Yeah.
Like, I looked at it like this, like I hadn't had a good meet in a while, and I looked at it and I was like, well, my stomach's making all sorts of crazy noises, excuse me. I looked at it like this, like I've been squatting 1,000 pounds since like 2016, I think, right? 2015, 2016. I'm opening with 1025. I could do this in briefs and wraps. You better fucking get this. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. It's like, okay, I'm wearing a bench shirt that I benched 622 in 3 years ago. I'm opening with 611. You better fucking get, like, opening with a 675 deadlift. I've been pulling that for since 2015. So it took a lot of the stress off. And then I just made small jumps, which, like you said, like maturing to that point, because before it was like, I got to blow the fucking roof off. I'm the underdog. And what ended up happening is I placed really well because I just kind of like went in and had a solid day.
Yeah.
Which is which is funny because I tell people that, but it's really hard to like look inward. You know what I mean? And be like, what should I do? If I was my coach, what would I say?
Back in when the WPO was the WPO, like the people that go back to when it was a huge thing, that was with the lifters that Elite FTS was sponsoring at the time. That was always the advice that I would give them because they're the level that you're at. It's like, this isn't about who the strongest person is, even though you think it is.
Yeah.
It's about who can come in the healthiest and make the best attempts.
Yes.
Bottom line, that's it. You know, the most fucked up guy with most injuries, more banged up, isn't normally the one that's going to win. Right. So the training has to be, I don't want to say conservative, but smart.
I didn't take my thirds in the gym. I usually do.
Everything has to be smart with the line of, I need to go in as healthy. That doesn't mean you're healthy, right?
Yeah.
People miss that. So I'm going to say that again. It doesn't mean you're healthy. As healthy as you possibly can.
Right. Yeah.
And then seize that day. And that changes because as we'll talk about, as you start to come up in the sport, you can have that aggressive, fuck you, I'm going to get 50 pounds on my total every single time you go out attitude. And then it begins to change. Then you think it shouldn't change, and it's only changing because you're now a pussy, and you shouldn't be a pussy. You weren't a pussy before.
Well, yeah, it's like I'm a better lifter now. Why, when I was a worse lifter, could I put 50 pounds? Like, what the fuck? Like, why am I like I could, like, when I went from 850 to 900 or 900 to 1,000, my 1,000 pound looked like my 900. Like, what the fuck? Why doesn't it work from 1,000 to 11? Like, what is happening? And you like fuck yourself here, and it's like, well, dude, like, the fucking razor's edge is getting skinnier. Like when I was squatting 9, I was probably strong enough to be squatting 940, so I could look like a piece of shit when I did it and still squat it and fuck it up and whatever, you know. I think part of that too was the environment, like being at Westside and stuff. Like it was like, cut my head off, I don't care. Like, and that helped me make a step, you know. And it's like you do the crazy shit to get over the hump, and then you got to learn once you're over the hump to like mellow out a little bit. You know what I mean? It's like I went from 905 squat to 1075 in, I think it was 19 months. And then it's taken almost 3 years to go from 1075 to 1110. And that's hard to swallow because everyone's like, you got this crazy squat. And it's like, yeah, it's been putting along here for a while. That big jump though kind of fucked me mentally.
Well, there's another variable though too, where when the weights are, I don't want to say lighter, right? But when there's a certain degree of fuck uppertry that you can have on a, let's say a squat.
Yeah.
Like there's a certain degree of mostly we want that bar to travel in a straight line, right? Especially on the way up, the straightest line possible. There's a certain degree of variance that you can have with 700, 600, 800.
Yeah.
That window gets taken away.
Yeah.
The heavier those weights become. And it's relative to the person as well, right? It's not just at 900 the world changes, but it kind of does. Like 800 is different than 900. 900 is different than a grand. It's some different stuff.
Yeah.
But then it becomes if the bar just fucking rolls,
You're fucked.
on the way down, you're fucked.
Yeah. And that threshold gets pushed too. The hard thing for me to figure out, I remember my first multiply meet, I was looking around in the fucking warm-up room. I did it out in Columbus. I was still living in New Hampshire. And I came out for Battle of the Titans. I think it was the first one Hoff had put on. And I'm looking around in the warm-up room, and it's like Pacifico and Kale was there, and, Mello was still lifting big weights and like all that. And I don't know these fucking guys really, but I'm watching it. I'm like, holy shit. Like, so you mean to tell me that if I want to eventually squat 1,000, I'm going to have to take 940 before I even get on the platform? Like that you realize you got to get focused for longer. Like your focus takes longer, and you need more of it to get through the day when those weights get bigger. Because it's like if you're opening with a 600-pound multiply squat, if I can take 550 in the back and go, it's not that crazy. You know what I'm saying? But it's like when you have to take four suited attempts before you're on the platform, all of a sudden it's like, well, if I fuck up 10% on my second to last warm-up, then I have less gas in the tank for my third attempt on the platform. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, I was talking about this yesterday, actually. It's like, if you have a drink and this is how much gas you have, and normally 800 warm-up only takes this much, but you let it get out in front of you, now it took this much. Well, that's taken off your bottom end when you're swinging for 1,010 on your third.
Yeah.
And for me, it took a while to figure that out, because I would be in the warm-up room like full-blown, like super drawled out, banging my head against the bar to try to get up for these weights to make sure I was ready for those, but it would just gas me. I'd go 2 for 3 on squats, 1 for 3 on bench, and 2 for 3 on deadlift, because I'd be fucking destroyed.
When did so the first meet transpires, then at what point, because you squatted 9 before coming to Westside.
Yeah.
So
yes, before I moved out here.
yeah. So how was the training that you were doing then?
Yeah, so I did that first meet. The second meet I did was in wraps. I squatted 655 in just wraps, and that was like drug tested at 220. And the bench was about the same, like 330. I think I pulled 610. And then I decided so I cut to 198, bombed out of a raw meet. It was a fucking joke. And I did that on a Saturday, and then on the Monday.
I see you didn't learn that whole cutting thing wasn't a
No,
fucking idea,
no, I
right?
cut like 30 pounds for that. That's fucking so stupid. I was going after like the 98, like wrapped, drug tested, like all this stupid shit. You know how, all of us, you have 2 good meets and you're like, oh, I'm a fucking stud or whatever. And so, so I did that. And then on the Monday, we flew out to me and Brian Silfies, who is the guy we actually purchased our gym from. We went out to Westside for the first time, and I put on a canvas when I was out there. The Monday after that, I squatted 705, and I was like, oh, I'm never competing raw again. Like, this is way too much fun. Like, fuck that. So that was in December, and then that Battle of the Titans meet was in March, I believe, early March. So it was like a quick turnaround. And basically we were like on the phone with Lou like once or twice a week. Cause Brian was a Westside certified gym at the time when they still had that. So he would talk to him pretty regularly. What should we do? This, that, and the other thing. And then we would basically take what Lou told us and be like, okay, like that's sick, but like, what do you need to feel ready basically? Cause it's like, I wasn't going to have my last squat be to a box when I've only been in a canvas 4 times. You know what I mean? So we did like, basically I'd go in and like, we'd do like weird free squat variations. So I might like do like briefs and wraps plus 120 and chain for a free squat to a max effort, just getting comfortable with it, right? I had no glutes, no hamstrings, because I was a hockey player. So I only had quads. I couldn't sit back. My shit was ugly, but I was really mobile this way.
Yeah.
So I could almost like I could fit in that skinny rack sideways. Like I just like completely open this way. And so I had a lot to work on. I'd do like straps down with wraps, free squat, like work up to an opener, like all this stuff. And my bench at that meet was actually the first or second time I had touched in that bench shirt, which is hilarious for me because I've had problems with bench and we traveled across the country to try it. But yeah, I basically took my opener in some way on like a top load or with different equipment on, like almost every week. I would come in and take 705, 705, 705, and just kind of made sure that I stayed healthy and kind of stayed in the groove because I was a wide stance raw squatter, but like heavy forward knee travel. It was just like ugly, dude, you know, all quad. And so like learning how to sit back, like I just needed to be in equipment a lot. Like my box squats were like, you know, the ones where like you sit, kind of rock, and then come forward and the knees go, come forward and then stand up. And it makes all of us now, we're like cringe. That's what like almost all of my box squats looked like at the time. And I didn't know any better. We didn't really know how to fix it. So, yeah, I went to that meet. I missed 805. Dude in front of me blew his knee off and tore his tricep off. Like the squatter before me. And I was like, holy fuck. So I got like a little sketched out. So I went 705, 755, jumped to 805. And I was, you know, when the person calling your depth voice change, like when it goes from like back to get back, it like the like, so I got nervous. I was like, holy shit, like I'm going to fucking die. So I just came up with it. And obviously cut it high. So I went 755. I think I benched like 455 and pulled 640. So like a sub 1,800 pound total. And then, and then I pretty shortly thereafter, I'd say probably like 4 or 5 months after that, I did another meet, total 2,000 at 220. And that was, I did the full blown Circumax, like book of methods. This dude, Andy Vale, basically walked me through it. And that was the meet that kind of made people in the area aware of me because I squatted 850 at 220. And I actually said to a certain individual at that meet, she said to me, like, 850 at 220, that's pretty fucking good. And I was like, yeah, it's not good enough though. Like, I want to train at Westside. And she laughed in my face, like laughed at me. And come to find out like years later, like, joke's on you, I ended up back over there. But it was like one of those moments where it's like, I will fucking remember that forever. And I'm going to prove this person wrong. She's like pretty well known or whatever. But yeah, I did that. And then I tore my meniscus at a hardcore show, like at a punk show. So I had to get knee surgery. So I did that in November, that meet. And then
no, we can't just.
No, I'm going to get to it. Yeah. So I grew up going to shows, hardcore and punk rock and metal, like my whole life. And, I went to a show and there's this thing called head walking. It's like, there's going to be some people who are watching this are going to be like, oh, I know. And other people are going to be like, what the fuck is that? So basically like run across stage and like see how many people's heads you can step on, like running. Anyway, so it's fun, whatever. So I was doing that and I fell and I tore my meniscus, my left knee or my right knee. And there I am at this venue in Worcester, Mass, like in the bathroom, like wide stance squatting. Like, did I just fuck my knee up? Like, what's going on? So I had to get meniscus, they scoped it or whatever. I could still deadlift conventional. I couldn't squat, and I couldn't bench with my feet tucked back. So I got the surgery, 3 weeks post-surgery, squatted 700 to a box. I was like, all right, I'm going to be fine.
What did you do within those 3 weeks?
Oh, dude. I mean, 2 days after. So me and my wife, we weren't together at the time. We were just training together. I mean, 3 days after the surgery, 3 days after the surgery, I'm doing seated good mornings. Like you know the shit, like back extensions, like anything I could do to train. I would just go in there and be like, does this hurt? Nope. Okay. Because the worst thing that the doctor told me was we didn't reattach anything. So whatever pain level you can deal with, you can train through. And I'm like, say less. Like, I'm going to do everything then. So I think I started squatting maybe the end of the first week after the surgery. And then just kind of progressed it from there. But yeah, it was 3 or 4 weeks after I squatted 705 to a box. And my best squat in comp was 850 at the time. So I was like, all right, I'm good. There was a push-pull out here. And Lou had said something about it to my coach or the guy that owned the gym that I was working at. And I was like, all right, I'm going to come out and do that. Like, I'm going to come out and I'll bench. I want to bench 500 for the first time. I want to pull 700 for the first time. I had not free squatted really in full gear since then. So we drove out here. I cut to 220 again. We drove out here. It worked until it didn't. You know what I mean?
I know. But I'm just laughing because the advice you give your clients, man, is don't cut. And there's like fucking 3 times now.
Yeah. So I cut to 220 and the whole like Skittles and spit deal, right? When we were driving out here. And I get a call. We're like 15 minutes out from Westside. We were going there to like hang beforehand and you know, see Lou. And I didn't know these people really. I had only met Lou once at this point. So Brian calls me and he's like, hey man, Lou just made a joke about you trying out to train here. And I was like, he's on speakerphone. Val, my wife, is in the car, and our training partner Reed is in the car, and we're all like shook. Like, we were like, what the fuck? Like, is he serious? He's like, I don't know if he's serious or not. I said, okay. So we show up, he comes out, hey, how you doing? Whatever. He's like, what are you going to do this weekend? I was like, well, I'm going to bench 5, pull 7, and then I'm going to come in here on Monday, I'm going to squat 9. And he's like, all right. So I did that. And so I did that, came in on Monday, squatted the 9. And when we left, he asked me, he's like, hey, why don't you come do this meet with us down in West Virginia? It's like in 8 weeks or something like that, or 10 weeks or something. I was like, all right, cool. When we left, Tom reached out to Brian and was like, Lou would like Anthony to come back for Circumax. Like, all right, cool. Like, fuck it. So I did basically the same thing I did to come out here, like flew out and then flew right back. But I did, it was 6 plates and a quarter, blue and green band to a box, and, you know, the whole Circumax thing. And I just like walked up to Lou and was like, hey man, like, what do I have to do to train here? And I was expecting him to say like all this stuff, right? And he was like, oh, you want to train here? You can train here. He's like, you can come out whenever you want. And I was like with you in the morning. Like, I wanted to like clarify, and he was like, it's only the morning, which come to find out, not necessarily the case, but for me especially. But yeah, so I was like, all right, let me do this, meet with you guys, and then I'll come out here. So I went home. I called my dad from the parking lot, still like, I was still putting my life together. I was like still smoking cigarettes and shit. So I'm like smoking a cigarette in my canvas, calling my dad, like, you know, like, hey man, like, we did it. It's fucking happening. You know, at the time my dad had cancer, and he told me on the phone, he was like, dude, like, I want you to stay here so bad. You know, I want you to stay here, but you have to go. You like have to do it. So we went and did that meet. I squatted 905, benched 525, pulled 675. And it was a hard meet. It was hot. It was fucked. And, you know, Lou came up to me after, because I didn't really realize that was a tryout meet until the deadlifts. So I'm in the back arguing with my guy, being like, I don't want to open with 675. That's too heavy. Like, I just squatted 9. I PR'd my bench. Like, I don't want to. And I asked Tom, and Tom was like, well, it's not like you've got an invite to Westside, you know, in the wind with this or whatever. And I was like, oh shit, this is a tryout. I didn't even know it, like, that it was like a tryout meet. I thought it was just like, come do this meet with us, then move out here after. I didn't know how it worked. So I opened with 675 and missed 705 twice. And Lou came up to me after the meet, and he's like, I'll put 100 pounds on your squat in 3 months. I moved there September 7th. And like December 20 something, I squatted 1,000.
What do you think caused that? The biggest variables.
The 100 pounds on the squat. Well, I think the major thing was like, there was literally nothing else to me. I didn't give a fuck about anything else. Like,
but wasn't that true before you moved though?
To a degree. But it's different when you get put on an island and you're living on someone's couch. Yeah. I'm living on Christian Mello's couch at the time. And it's me, Christian, his wife's assistant, Wes McCormick, and this kid Josh, all in one fucking house that only has one extra bedroom. So I'm like, the only thing that matters is lifting weights. And I was doing I read a thing that Chuck did 1,000 reps of abs a day. I was doing all of the shit. And I think that had part of it to do with it. And secondly, I was like Louie's new toy. So he followed me around the gym and gave me a lot of attention. And I think that really helped, maybe not necessarily in a technical aspect, but in a motivational, because I didn't really understand how he operated at the time. Mm-hmm. But a couple guys warned me hey, dude, just so you know, he's not your best friend. It seems that way right now. I didn't really understand that until a little later on. But that, and he basically the first day, he watched every box squat, stood there, ran the hooks for me. And he just brought me over to the monolith, or to the belt squat. And he was showed me that pushing back into my glutes. Everybody thinks glute contraction, right? But you have to be able to load them to sit back. So he had me do in my squat stance, loading into my glutes, hip thrusts that way. He's do those until you're fucking dead. I don't care. Just do those until you're dead. So I don't know how many sets I did, but whatever. And then I'm dying. And he's all right, reverse hypers. He's just do 2 or 3 sets of these and you're done for the day. And he's this is what you do every time you squat now. Mm-hmm. And I did that. And I think that, and I think the fact that there was just I hadn't had anything that I thought I could be really good at before. When I squatted 9, it wasn't hard. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And I was I think I could do something cool. So 1,000 to me, because I was so fresh and green to the sport, 1,000 was just another number. I wasn't weird about it. It didn't freak me out. It was just, this is just what I do. My weights just go up forever. I don't fucking know.
You played hockey in college though, right? Yeah. So what do you mean by it was the first thing you felt that you could be really good at?
I survived in hockey.
What do you mean?
I'm competitive as fuck, but I don't think I was a gifted hockey player. Yeah. So D1 schools wouldn't even look at me because I was under 6 feet. Okay. But I was a good locker room guy. I fucking practiced really hard. And I was just willing to do whatever to win. Mm-hmm. But I was not a talent. You know what I mean? I never thought I'm going to make it to the NHL. I'm going to play. You know what I mean? That was never a thing. But with lifting.
Is it safe to say that you never felt that your work was going to pay off directly for you?
With the hockey stuff? Yeah, and I knew there was parts of me that didn't fit that culture as far as I'm alternative looking. That's not really part of that. That whole thing, right? I was never a hockey player. I was a kid who loved hockey and played it. But I didn't fit in with those kids. I wasn't a jock. Yeah. You know? Which I kind of regret now looking back on. I wish I had done the thing and gone all in and see truly pushed myself with the hockey stuff where I was all in and wasn't worried about partying and that sort of shit.
Well, see, now your definition of all in's changed.
Well,
you see what I'm saying? Yeah, because that's all in hindsight because you've done that with powerlifting.
Yeah.
So now you can look back and say, well, fuck.
I was not all, I thought I might have been.
Yeah, but you only, but I was not. I mean, that's kind of the one caveat I have with this whole all in thing and work hard thing, because it's only defined as to what you think it is. Yeah. You know, so if you're working with a client and they tell you they work hard, well, to them, maybe they do. Because that's the hardest they've ever worked. But you're nah.
You have no idea.
You know, so the all in kind of plays into that same thing. But the part that I don't like about what you just said is you shouldn't have to change your identity to be able to be the best at something that you want to be.
No, and I agree. Yeah, I'm the first dude. I'm the stay hated guy. Yeah, I know. I'm the fucking it is what it is, right? Yeah. But with powerlifting, no one can. There's no politics. You either fucking squat. Oh, there's politics.
Wait a minute.
No. Hold on. Not in the same way.
No, I get it.
Not in the same way. It's a very black and white thing. You can't pretend to be good at powerlifting. You can't schmooze your way to a degree.
Lift it or you don't.
Yeah, to a degree, right? So with the 1,000-pound squat, I knew that I could be decent at this. I knew that if I really committed to this, I could do it. And it was one of those things where I was still sort of self-destructive with myself. So I was not only do I think I could be good at this, but I don't care if this cuts me in half. And looking back on it, like, you know, I tell this story sometimes, like, you know, I looked at my mom and I said, if I squat 1,000 when I'm 30 and I die when I'm 31, I don't give a fuck. And whether I meant it or not, it's just a dumb thing to say to your mom. So I feel bad that I said that, but that was my mindset. And I think that the 1,000-pound squat happened because I just assumed I could fucking do it. You know what I mean? Like, it was kind of like, oh, I'm going to be sick at this. I'm just going to fucking do this. And it seemed like so black and white to me, where it's just like, well, if I can pick up 2 gallons of water, I can pick up 3. And like looking around at Westside being like, well, these dudes are made of the same stuff that I'm made of. So I can lift these weights too. Actually at that meet, I opened with 880 and the floor was carpet. So I was like slipping. So they pulled the carpet. I only jumped to 930. So 25-pound PR, and then jumped from 930 to 1,000. Just because I said I would do it. So like I said I would fucking do it no matter what on the third. Fuck it, give it to me. And ended up going pretty well. And that was for sure the last 100-pound squat PR.
Yeah.
So I think that a lot of it was just like environmental and like an extreme belief that like if I just decided to, I could do it. And with weights, no one's really in your way of doing that. Like you could decide that you wanted to be a fucking basketball player.
It's true and not true. Like
until you blow something off or whatever. Like,
well, your story's going to continue here in a minute too, right?
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah, I just figured that that's how it worked, and it's kind of like too dumb to know you can't.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where it's like, well, Lou said that I could do this, so here I fucking go. I guess I'm safe. Like I hadn't seen someone's career get ended with a squat yet. I didn't really know. Like it was just 1,000. Like I had a dude, I don't want to blow up his spot. I had a dude say to me like, well, you should just take 990 because it's basically 1,000, but you don't get in your head about it. And I'm like, fuck you. Why would I squat 990? That sucks. Like I want to squat 1,000. I don't want to basically squat 1,000. I want to fucking squat 1,000. So give me the 1,000, because people get, you know, if you look at the records and the lists, you look at how many 980s there are and then how many thousands are, it drops down. And then if you look at how many 1010s there are and 1005s, there's way less than the thousands, because they do it once. They can't fucking believe they did it. They can't replicate it.
Yeah.
Or they got really close, and then as soon as you put 1015 on their back, they fucking shit their pants. And to me, I feel like I didn't know the dangers with it or whatever, so I wasn't in my head about it.
Well, what if the 990 is the last squat you ever did?
Yeah, fuck that. I'm not leaving that.
Man,
Yeah, no, I'm not leaving that to chance. Like I said I would do it. I wasn't going to basically squat 1,000. I was going to actually do it. Because that's a big thing with powerlifting that I'll see is like people are like, well, I basically totaled this. It's like, no, you fucking didn't.
Yeah.
Because if you did, that would be the number that said that. There's no basically. Like you either totaled that much or you fucking didn't. There's no I basically did. So to me, it was never a question. Like you'll never see me take a fucking, if my deadlift grows to it, like I'm not going to try and pull 799 at a kilo meet.
Yeah.
Fuck that. Because if you never pull it again, you pulled 799 and it's like, you can't say 800 because that's not what you did.
Yeah, exactly. It's basically.
They're assholes for having that kilo.
Yeah, I know. It's ridiculous. At what point did that change? You know, so you came to Westside and then things went sour or south, or
as far as what part, like training at Westside or my squat?
Well, just your training at Westside, because it all corresponds.
So I was so I squatted that one. I did like a crazy amount of meets the first year I was there, year and a half I was there, just like meet after meet after meet. My first meet there, you know, I fucking only had a 5-pound PR, and Lou said, you're not cutting for the next one, and there's a meet in 3 weeks, and that was the 1,000-pound meet, right? So then I just kept rolling into meets, and I did a 1030, I missed a 1065, and 1065 would have taken Greg off the board. And so I was going 42, bombed out of another meet, and then I was gonna do a push-pull at Showman's. And like I had PR'd my squat so many times in that, like just those couple weeks leading up, I was like, fuck this, I'm just gonna do full power. and I'm going to take that fucking number. I want that number. I want the board. And so I showed up. I didn't tell Louie I was doing that. He thinks I'm doing push-pull. I'm putting my briefs on. He's like, what are you doing? And I was just like, I don't know, man. Like, you told us we don't borrow strength around here. So I just feel strong. So I'm just going to do the whole meet. And it like fired him up. You know, he loves that sort of bulldog shit. Opened with 980, went 1065 after and got it. Took the board for the first time. So I was kind of like, you know, he liked me at that time and whatever. I think Louie is used to quiet, smart guys or kind of loud, dumb guys. I don't think he's used to someone who has read all the books and will talk shit, which is me. He doesn't really like that too much. So when he would look at me, I was kind of feeling myself. Like, I got on the board. Like, I took a dude off the board that he said is one of the strongest dudes to ever come through there. You know, Greg's the man. That felt really cool to like take another New England guy off the board or whatever. But when Lou would look at me and be like, he was obsessed with the 5x5 stuff, and triples had made me strong, doubles and triples. So when he would come over and he'd say like, well, why are you doing doubles? You're not doing sets of 5. And I'd look at him and said, because every piece of literature you've ever published said 12 doubles. So that's what I'm doing. And he didn't like that. And so, so that kind of created tension between us. And it wasn't disrespect to Louie. It was my misunderstanding of how things ran there. Because my understanding was we do whatever it takes to get us strong. The person, right? Or the gym as a whole, which is the people in the gym. So to me, there wasn't anything wrong with saying that to someone. Because it was like, this is what's working for me right now. And so this is what I'm going to continue to do. What I didn't realize was like, Lou's not a huge fan of things that aren't his idea. You know what I mean? And so we butted heads with that. And I want to be respectful.
How so? Because that was his.
It was his thing, but not in that moment.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? At his time, at that time, it was 5x5. One of them, I have a video on my phone. I was doing triples, bow bar, 6 plates, 200 and chain. And I'll never forget this. He comes over and he's like, so you're doing triples, huh? And I was like, yeah. And he goes, guess some guys want to work hard and some guys don't. Just walks away. Which to me at the time was like, those were fighting words. I was fucking pissed. So I told the guy, I was like, I'm going to do a set here. Like, don't throw the hooks. So I do 3 and you see me and I'm in the black monolift and he's like at the entrance, like the split between the 2 rooms. And I do 3 and I got my head up and then you see me just go like this. And I stared at him. I did 3 more. Rack it and the video cuts off. I'm like, motherfucker, like going crazy or whatever. That was the beauty of Lou though. Because he'd piss you off so much that you would do the thing that he wanted you to anyway. And I have tons of stories like that where he would push me. But there was conflict there. And I don't know if I handled it right. I don't know if he handled it right, whatever. But it was just, we just butted heads. So we just didn't get along. And so it kind of devolved where, I mean, we talked about it at a meet one time where it's like, all of a sudden the dudes in the gym, they don't want to fuck with you because you're on Lou's shit list. So then you're training by yourself, which makes you more angry, which isolates you more, which makes Lou dislike you more and more. Like, it's like this vicious, you probably saw it 1,000 times when you were there, right? It's like, what's the quote? It's like, as soon as someone starts training alone, they're on their way out the door. So I had to deal with that a little bit with like the guys in the gym where they kind of separated themselves from me to a point. And the guy who didn't was Hoff, and I didn't even train with him at the time. He had like, for some reason, saw potential in me. And so he started helping me sort of like set up. Like, he taught me how to set up a big training day to get the most out of it to practice for our sport. And Lou's thing was just like, strong. You just need to be strong. And it's like, well, that's true to a point, but you also need to be technically sound. And Dave kind of taught me how to do the things that'll get you really fucking strong, but also set up these days where the goal is technical proficiency and practice at our sport. And obviously I don't have to tell you like what Lou thinks about touching in a bench shirt or taking a full gear squat in the gym. So he didn't really care for that stuff either. So we kind of butted heads on that. But by the same token, I mean, like there were days where I had a plan to go in there and he would say something wrong and I'd get a hair across my ass and I would just do whatever he told me to do because he would say I couldn't do it or some shit like that. You know, he really, I think Lou got every pound out of me that he knew how to get out of me. That just happened to be 2350. And I've totaled 2510 since.
At what point did you decide to go to the night crew instead of the AM?
It's kind of a funny story. Me and Dave it's funny because at first, like, Dave didn't really care for me. I was a loudmouth kid. I probably overstepped boundaries and stuff. I didn't really know how it worked. But I saw him at a meet in Tennessee. He said something about the APF and how I should be competing there, and it's about your body of work and all this. And I like really respected that. I was like, that's cool to think like we should be strong everywhere. We're supposed to be the strongest guys. And then I saw him at the meet where he kicks the bar and shit, whatever that was. It was 2010. I was handling another guy at that meet. And I see Dave setting up to warm up deadlifts, and he just like kind of nonchalantly, you know, he's like, well, I haven't deadlifted in fucking 8 weeks. And I just kind of mumbled like, well, that's crazy. And he turned and looked at me and he's like, don't limit yourself by your fucking mind. And I was like, I need to learn everything I can from this guy because he's got it. So I kind of asked if I could come in to learn how to bench in the evening. And basically so Lou's not going to be into that, right? I wasn't even going to ask Lou if I could do it. I wasn't going to say, can I go in there at night, whatever. So I would go in on Wednesday morning, help everybody, and I would pick like some weird fucked up variation to do that Lou would have no like context of what I should be getting. I'd do like football bar, closest grip to a 3 board. You know what I mean? Like something weird. And then every time he would look at me, I would be sitting somewhere going like looking like I'm training, but I'm like hiding in the bathroom and shit. And then I would come in at night on Wednesdays to train with Dave. And so I kind of started going in there Wednesdays, and then Fridays I would go in and just like help load and spot their squats. Cause I had nothing else to do. My wife now is working a waitress job, so she wasn't home Friday night. So I'd go in and help them. And, through kind of a series of events, Lou found out that I was going in at night and basically said if I trained at night, I'd get kicked out. And so what I did was I still went in at night to help. And I think that showed Dave that I was fucking serious about getting better. Cause like, I didn't give a fuck. Like I'd train in the morning at fucking 6 or whatever. And I don't even remember what time, I think it was 6 or 7 or whatever. And then I would go back in at night. They're training at 7 p.m. and I'd be loading plates and spotting until 10. Just to try to learn. And so I think Dave took that as like me showing value to the group and I told him, I was like, dude, like, I don't want you to think I came in here to learn and then just bounced. Cause I think that happens to Dave sometimes. People want to just take, and I wanted to provide some value. So I came through and just brought like the energy and whatever. And that's sort of how that relationship started. And then he would just tell me what to do. And he came in the mornings for like a short stint. I don't remember if he talked about that on the show, but he came in for like a short stint. It just like wasn't a good fit, you know?
No.
But he would like kind of tell me what to do. So I was kind of like on my own, but at the same time, like not really. I was getting programmed by the fucking best to ever do it. So yeah, Dave was like monumental in my belief that I could do more. Cause Lou told me I'd never total more than 2350. My first meet after I left Westside, 2364, and my next meet, 2500.
What was the context of that conversation?
I had like a pelvic floor injury, oddly enough, which is like, if anybody's ever dealt with that, it's fucking hell, dude. It's awful. And it's like hard to talk about because like, where do you tell a doctor? It's like, oh, it's like, I have a pain behind my balls. You know what I mean? Like, and he was just like, oh, well, once you have an injury like that, you just never come back from it. You'll never total more. And I was just like, holy fuck. Like, all right. Like, and I was kind of like second guessing myself anyway. You don't know if am I done? Am I, you know? And then that kind of like lit a fire under my ass to a degree, but I kind of got a little sad about it. And then Dave was like, Dave would just like send me numbers. He would just text me and he would just be like, 11, 620, 780, like whatever. Like that's how you're going to total 25. Like that's how you're, and I just started believing everything he said. And I was just like, dude, I'm going to go like this and follow every fucking word this guy says. And I did. And it changed the trajectory of my career.
What is the timing of this to where you guys went to the doghouse?
So,
I mean, because you're playing this little game, right? Before, how long did that last?
It lasted maybe 3 months, 4 months, something like that. And then you could say I got kicked out, could say I left. It just depends on how you view the conversation I had with Lou. When I gave him my key, it was not an explosive conversation at that point. We had plenty, but that one wasn't. And we went down and trained. Val, my wife, was training at Sweatshop at the time. So she was driving to Cincinnati from Columbus. And poor Val, she's sitting there. I come back from training, like, this fucking, you know how it is. Like, this fucking place, you're going crazy. And she's like, so why are we in Columbus and I'm driving an hour and a half, 4 times a week each way? So she put up with a lot of shit. But anyway, we went down there, trained at Laura's for maybe like 8 months. And that was really cool because talk about a different environment, different type of coaching.
How?
So Westside is like, well, if you can do 15 bent over rows with 2 plates, put a 3rd plate on. And I don't care how it looks, but I want you to see you get 15. Laura's is, you can get 15 with 2 plates, but the last 4 were trash. Go down to 1 plate and do all 15 right. It was very much, for me, a little too technical because there wasn't like that like bulldog, pit bull, fuck it thing. Laura was so technical and Shane is how he is. I think that's just like, and they've obviously produced some insane female lifters out of that fucking place. And they were really helpful with Val's career too. So going down there, basically getting hands-on training from Laura 4 days a week on programming from Dave was incredible. It was awesome. You know what I'm saying? Because he knew I was in good hands. She knew he was telling me what to do. It was awesome. So she was good with us. And then Dave got me invited back to come back up to Columbus, and we moved back up here to train in the evening. He basically, from what he told me, told Lou that it was like a package deal. Like Anthony and his wife were coming.
Yeah.
And we both came up and started training at night. And that was like, dude, we moved back up here, and it was like within inside of 3 months we were training at Doghouse, and things had kind of like fallen apart over there. But yeah, it was a big change for Val too. So now Val's coming from super technical, you know, her speed work for squats would be like a fucking green band or a white elite band, plate, quarter, dime. And her first fucking session with us, it's like, well, your first set is 2 plates, quarter, and we're using 4 chains because you're using the man chains.
Yeah.
And all of her lifts went like, because it was a different environment. Like, you know, like, not to kiss Westside's ass, but there's something about that fucking building that you just like, weights are heavier in there, but you're stronger in there. The environment, you can't really beat it. And not that Sweatshop is a bad environment or anything. It's just different. So I think when she stepped in there, it just elevated to this other level. And I don't know if you experienced this when you were there, but the conflict morning versus night is kind of fun. You know what I'm saying? Like, and you kind of feel like we were team night crew. Like we were, you know, it kind of felt like an us versus them thing. So that elevates stuff too. Cause we're looking at the board and we're like, all right, who's here that can take somebody off from the morning? Who's here that can take, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that turned into a cool thing. Obviously, it caused some issues or whatever, but then within 3 months, we were at Doghouse and basically like took our crew or Dave's crew there and created the culture there. There was like all the good stuff from Westside and left the stuff that didn't apply.
What would you say is the good stuff that was pulled over there?
So, listen, man, like I take this shit really seriously, obviously. But like, you're not a fucking warrior for missing your fucking aunt's funeral to speed bench. You know what I'm saying? There's nothing wrong with making that decision, but no one's going to make that decision for me. You know what I'm saying? And so like with Dave, like part of his requirement is like, you have to have a job. Like he doesn't want bullshit. He doesn't want disenfranchised guys. You know what I'm saying? And girls like, so I think that adds to the culture of the group. Because I could message Dave or text Dave or whatever and just be like, hey man, like I can't make it tonight because whatever, Val's flying in from my mom's I got to do this. Like I'm going to catch a bench session on Tuesday because I have to do, and like, it's all good. Like it doesn't take away from how serious I take it. So I think that was one of the big differences. And honestly, like I don't know about after I left Westside how it was, but it was harder for me to get into Dave's group than it was for me to get into Westside. He keeps it tighter because to him, he doesn't want to waste any time on somebody, right? So like Lou, you know, like the fastest, the brightest stars burn out or whatever he says, like kind of, and I want to be really clear. I don't want to be disrespectful to Lou.
Yeah.
I'm grateful for the guy, but like Dave doesn't want you to come in and train for fucking 3 months, break a world record and quit. He wants somebody who's there. You know what I mean? And so he's pickier about who comes in, because part of his thing is like, you got to be able to hang too. Like he doesn't want to train with people he doesn't like. He doesn't want to train with people. I'm kind of speaking for him, but what I've noticed is like, he's not going to train with somebody that he wouldn't have over his house. And that changes the culture because you really start looking out for people. You know what I mean? Whereas as like, there's like the conflict with training partners, which like you seem to enjoy, like in conversation we had before we started stuff, like you like that. And some people really like that. I think that the expiration date probably comes sooner. And a lot of times you'll lose the relationship with that person. Now at what cost? Like you get stronger because of it. Like, of course, I think that I respond better to being insulated and knowing that I have like a group of people that want me to succeed.
Yeah, you can have both, right? So it's the context.
They'll still say, fuck you, you're not working hard enough.
Yeah, it's the context to where, you know, in all the powerlifting groups I was in, even before Westside, it's kind of the same thing. Is there was, what other option was there? You see what I'm saying? So when I was at Westside, it's, where am I going to go? Like if this doesn't work out, I get too pissed off. Like where am I going to go?
Yeah.
Right. So now the shit talking and all the other kind of stuff, you brush it off, you ignore it, you become part of it. You know, you do all of it, but it doesn't. The emotions kind of get left out of it. Because I don't want to deal with having to think about this, you know, once I leave, because I got other shit to do. And B, I don't want to deal with the cortisol, you know, being, you know, I know, don't get me wrong, I'd be pissed if I missed a lift or the lift didn't go right.
Sure.
That fucking keeps you mad for a long time.
Yeah.
But you know, the shit that people were talking outside of Louie, because I mean, he would get under your skin. You know, that was completely a different thing.
Yeah.
But I think where things started to change is when there became other options, because now in your head or somebody else's head, you're not thinking, well, where the fuck else am I going to go? You already know 3 or 4 places you can go.
By the end of the day, you could be there.
Yeah. So now that same conversation, that same bullshit's being processed a little different, because you're like, I don't need this shit. I can go here.
Yeah.
Where I need to figure this shit out.
Yeah.
There's nowhere else to go.
Yeah.
You know, and it changes.
Yeah. So like my big thing, I remember when I was like really struggling there and like, I wasn't sure if I wanted to stay, you know? I remember my biggest thing, someone asked me like, what's keeping, I think it was Val asked me like, what's keeping you? And it's like, I don't want to be the guy they talk about at breakfast.
It's going to happen anyhow, though.
Like
they're already doing it.
Yeah, yeah. So like the funny thing is like with Westside of the culture there, it's like, you know, you like look back on past relationships or past jobs and you're like, if I got put back in that situation right now, it would be a fucking joke and I'd be able to laugh every part of it off. That's how I look at my time that I had there, where it's like, if I had wrapped my head around stuff the way that I do now, like none of it would have bothered me. But at the time when you're in it, it's hard to not let it bother you.
Oh, totally.
You know what I mean? And it makes you sound like, for people who didn't train there or haven't been in similar situations, you sound like kind of weak-minded because you're letting this shit like seep in. But when the shit that's seeping in is literally all you give a fuck about, it's hard to not let it affect you like outside of that those four walls.
Yeah. Well, the other thing too is, and it took me a while to figure out during my time there, is you're always part of there's 2-3 sides of every situation. You're only seeing one, and you're actually in a bubble to not see the other.
Yeah.
Right. Either because you're told, don't speak to so and so, don't speak to them, don't do that. And they're like evil.
Yeah.
They're like the enemy, right? So you cannot speak to, even if it's a different gym or whatever it's going to be, just don't speak there.
Right.
Then all you know is what you're being told. You're kind of brainwashed in a way, right? And then you finally get out and you speak to the other, and you're like, wow, that's interesting. That's not what I thought.
Right.
This is like a whole different, I didn't know this part.
The Kool-Aid drinking and being a part of it, well, it's awesome. I think it's it's a big part of how Louie made it work. Yeah, you need that, right? Like, there's parts of that culture that I fucking love. Like, I love that. Like, the competitive, the fuck you. Like, there's part of me that love it, but like, the sustainability of it. Like, I got to a point where I was like, am I trying to be a tough guy or am I trying to lift weights?
Yeah,
I'm trying to fucking lift weights. Like, I've already like I'm not like some big fighting guy or whatever. People always think I am because of how I look, but like, I'm not that person. Am I trying to be a tough guy or am I trying to be a fucking athlete? Like, I came out here to lift the biggest fucking weights that I can lift. So some of that stuff, while I think it's cool and it's tough and it's rad and I get it, I would sometimes be thinking, I'm like, what the fuck am I doing? Like, why am I changing my training to try to beat this guy? Why am I like, no, I need to be doing what's best for me.
Yeah.
And that was a hard thing to come to because I've got lots of injuries and, playing hockey, like my body was beat up when I started powerlifting. So doing stuff where you're like trying to keep up with other people for no fucking reason, just because you're supposed to. And like, I just couldn't get behind that at a certain point. And I think that was like one of the things that caused Louie.
No, it is. I mean, it's fun, but I went through the same crap, it's, I can sit and just remember max effort days, right? And it would be a movement that I know doesn't do shit for me.
Right.
How do I know? I fucking 14 years. I know it doesn't do shit. Suspended good mornings was one of them.
Yep.
And I go back and forth with Louie on this all the fucking time. Like, this does nothing for me. Well, yes, it does. I'm like, the fuck it does. The first week I came in here, I did 455. This is 10 years later.
Yeah.
It's still 455. And my squat's gone up 200 pounds. Everything else has gone way up.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, what if it isn't 455? What if you only do 420? And I'm like, well, first off, I'd never fucking do it because it's a plate and a quarter.
Yeah.
Right. And he says, but so he would come up with his shit, like, well, it's a tester, whatever the fuck that meant, right, at the time. It just lets you know that you're still on point. And so I'm watching, and so I'm in this fucking rotation, knowing it's not helping me for shit. It's not doing anything. I'm trying to process what this whole tester thing means. And then you still end up busting your ass, and not being able to move for 2 days afterwards, because that's a nightmare exercise.
It's a fucking hard one.
And it's brutal. And then ask yourself, 'cause I've read all this shit. I know Trey, like, you realize, hey, this was stupid. It was unnecessary. It wasn't specific. It doesn't play any role in here. The only thing this is mental masturbation.
Yeah.
And does that have value? Probably. But at this point,
well, somewhere, I think that has value if you're learning how to compete.
Yeah.
Like, if you're some dude that is just like a strong, like, there's certain guys who just like strong farm boy, but never had someone belly up to him. They don't understand like competition. They just know how to be strong. I think stuff like that sometimes is like, all right, man, we're going to do a 4-inch deficit conventional beltless for sets of 5 just to see if you're fucking tough.
Yeah. Well, with that one exercise, one person in particular was really good at it, right? So obviously it's
Isn't that the way? Yeah.
Isn't that always how it fucking works, right? So I would just use it as this, okay, fucker, wait till we get to the thing I'm really good at. You're going to hear some shit you ain't ever heard before. So I guess in a way, it kind of spills into that whole thing, but at a certain point, there's mileage that's built up.
Yeah.
You know, and damage that's done. It's like, is this necessary at that point?
Yeah.
Or something else like bow bar triples on good mornings with 315, 365, you know, just working the area.
Yeah.
Would fit, you know, and those were, there's this misconception that some of the guys had that Louie would listen to us. He didn't fucking listen to us no more. He's listening to anybody else that came through there. We'd have to figure out ways to feed it into the gym to where it wouldn't be my idea or Chuck's ideas or Stafford's ideas. It would be his idea.
Yeah.
And it's like,
I had to do that with Good Mornings too, because for me, a big problem with me, like not having strong glutes, my low back would round with Good Mornings, right? So when I showed up, I couldn't do a set of 5 with 2 plates for Good Mornings, right? I ended up doing 5.5 for a triple with a cambered bar by the time it was said and done, right? But I looked like shit. I looked like a fucking jumbo shrimp. Like I just looked terrible, right? So to me, I'm like, okay, my movement pattern is ass with this movement. I'm strong, pretty strong, but my movement pattern is ass. And my squats, I tuck my tail underneath me, which eventually is gonna fucking hurt me. So like I have to figure this out. So I started kind of figuring out, and it was, I forget if it was like the Russians or Bulgarians or somebody would do, instead of heavy Good Mornings, they would do light but high volume. So I just started doing a plate for sets of like 15, 20. Do like heel together, like mermaid stance, and just like really focusing on pushing back in my glutes, only going as far as I could go without losing the arch in my back, that sort of thing. And Lou did not like that at first. And then I kind of like referenced the like Russian thing, and then it was like kind of okay, but he was still mad because he wanted you to go in and do the heavy thing. But I'm like, man, like I'm not trying to, the heavy doesn't help me here. I need to work on like the movement pattern and the specific area that I'm trying to hit, that is obviously shitty and weak. So like arguing with him with that stuff was kind of like you said, it had to be his idea.
Yeah.
Right. So you kind of like have to bring it to him. Like, well, I saw an article that you posted before that kind of said this, is that okay? Da, 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 da. And then like the following week we'd be doing Good Mornings for sets of 15 or whatever, but it was like his plan.
Yeah. Yeah. Now you now have purchased your own gym.
Yes, sir.
Right. So like a year, 10 months ago, a year ago.
It's almost exactly a year.
So about
February.
a year ago. And it's a different world, right? Because
Totally.
now it's never what people think it is, where let's just speak about the powerlifting culture side of that, right? So
can I piss real quick?
Yeah, please.
Excuse me. I'll be right back.
That works. Actually, I will probably take a piss too. So you got something to put up there?
I've got Element.
Yeah, any of them will work. Today's episode is brought to you by Element, a tasty electrolyte drink mix with everything that you need and nothing that you don't. No sugar, no artificial coloring, no artificial ingredients, no gluten, no fillers, and no BS. With Element, I love the watermelon. The watermelon tastes freaking awesome. I drink 1 pack every day, no matter what. People that train out here, it's sitting out here for them all the time. The boxes don't last very long. Right now, Element is offering Table Talk listeners a free sample pack with any purchase. That's 8 single serving packages free with any Element order. Get yours at drinkelement.com/Table Talk. The deal is only available through the link in the description. The other thing is, if you don't like it, you can just give it away to a salty friend and Element will give you a 100% refund. No risk, money back guarantee. Head over to drinkelement.com/Table Talk. Today's episode is brought to you by Element, a tasty electrolyte drink mix with everything that you need and nothing that you don't. In other words, no sugar, no artificial coloring, no artificial ingredients, no gluten, no fillers, and no BS. With Element, I love the watermelon. The watermelon tastes freaking awesome. I drink 1 pack every day, no matter what. People that train out here, it's sitting out here for them all the time. The boxes don't last very long. Right now, Element is offering Table Talk listeners a free sample pack with any purchase. That's 8 single serving packages free with any Element order. Get yours at drinkelement.com/table talk. The deal is only available through the link in the description. The other thing is if you don't like it, you can just give it away to a salty friend and Element will give you a 100% refund. No risk, money back guarantee. Head over to drinkelement.com/table talk. Okay, and we're back. So the question was with your own gym now.
Sure.
And just the powerlifting side, trying to build a crew.
Yeah.
Right. So you kind of went from a really good crew at the doghouse.
I would argue the best, but I'm
okay.
biased.
Well, you're best, the best crew that you've been a part of,
Yeah.
and a very, very good, structured.
Yeah.
Because I spoke to Dave about it on the podcast. There's a lot of moving parts that went into kind of building that, and then starting fresh.
Yeah.
So what was that process, and how have you been able to navigate that?
Yeah, the hard part has been like, Dave showed me the right way to do everything, in my opinion, when it comes to running a crew, picking the guys, the workouts, all that stuff, building trust with people and all that, And he also kind of taught me, like, when you're like the top banana, like when you're the guy, everybody's going to be looking to you for advice, for help, whatever. So he told me the last night that I trained out here before we moved, he told me, don't try to put a crew together right away. Take a month at least and train. So you figure out, like, I like my mono here, this different equipment, this thing, so that you're not figuring that out while you're holding somebody's fucking hand, teaching them, So we kind of did that. You kind of have these grandiose ideas. Like, it's like, oh, well, me and Val can fucking train by ourselves and I can make it work. I'm not scared to squat with no spotters. Fuck it. And then you get into it and you're like, yeah, but what about a bench shirt? What about a knee wrap? She can wrap me to 1050, but she can't wrap me for more than that. So, we've kind of gone through a couple people, who didn't necessarily work out, where it was like one of those things where, like, I need to know, I don't want people in my group that have like an end line where they're like, I just want to squat 1,000 and then I'm going to quit.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that, but I don't want that because I don't have a fucking end line. The end zone keeps getting pushed for me.
Mm-hmm.
So someone who does that, all I hear is take. That's all they're doing. And Dave kind of taught me this. He's like, people are fucking going to try and pull from you, right? And you only have so much to give before it starts taking away from your training. So the couple people who have come in, one of them I still have a good relationship with, and he kind of like figured out himself that it wasn't going to work. He told me, he was like, listen, like, I can't give you what you need. I'm going to have a baby soon. I just know that it's not going to work. And I was pissed about it for about 3 months. And then I figured out, like, I respected him for being self-aware, I have one kid who's like my ride or die, Josh, who will do, I've known him for 10 years. He's the fucking man. He will do anything. His biggest concern was fucking up my training. Like, cause he's like a 205 kid at the time when I got out there. He was like a 500-pound squatter and multiply, 600-pound squatter and multiply, like base level, and since then he's gotten very, very good and he's going to be really good. But the group is hard because out there, it's like out here, you have some guy who squats 315, benches 225, is not anything special, but he trained, peripherally, like Chuck was in Lexington for 5 years or whatever. So he saw like, well, I've been in and out of this gym. That dude's never missed a fucking session. So I know to get to that level, it takes X. People in the Northeast, like in our area, don't have that. They don't have 1,000-pound squatters in every gym. They don't have 500-pound raw bench pressers. So I think part of the perception is it's just like, it just takes time. And it's like, yes, it just takes time, but it also takes like a lot of like, I don't want to say sacrifice, but like all-inness, like we've talked about. So finding people who like I can trust are going to be there, they're not going to bail on me, has been kind of difficult. And then you run into the people who might think they know powerlifting, but they don't realize that, like, I've seen it all when it comes to guys who I've seen guys who are full of shit who tell me they're, like you've seen it too, right? Like you've seen the guy who's just mystically losing weight all of a sudden, and then you find out he has a new girlfriend and he wants to look good, and it's like, no one here is getting smaller, motherfucker. Like, everybody here is getting bigger and stronger. So this is not going to work for me. And like lying to you about stuff that you can see right through because you know training and that sort of thing. So we had some situations with that, but basically I'm trying to replicate what we had out here, out there. It just has to start at a much lower level. So I'm bringing guys in who maybe don't have the numbers that we had in our group out here, but they have the like loyalty and the willingness to come in on Friday night and squat. Like, it's like, it shouldn't be a fucking question. I'm not texting people and asking, are you coming in Friday to squat?
Yeah.
Because that's just what we fucking do. You know what I mean? It's like brushing your teeth.
Yeah.
And so it's taken a little bit for people to understand that, especially since when I first got out there, I lost like 20 pounds. I was dinged up. I kept hurting myself. Had like a minor pec tear, hurt my back. Like, everything was fucked. I'm like, I hurt my pec with 425 floor press, and I floor pressed 520. So I was not in a good way. So when we first showed up there, I don't think people saw like the gap that there was. Not that I'm this crazy lifter or anything, but there's a pretty big gap between what's there and what I've seen out here. So trying to bring that culture in has been kind of frustrating at times. What I found is the people who are all in and all about it and understand it, it's pretty quick. You can tell. You're like, oh, okay, this fucking dude gets it. This dude doesn't get it. So I'm not going to waste any time on him. But Dave kind of like, we had a situation with a kid there that didn't end up working out. And I called Dave about it. I was like, dude, I don't know what to do with this. Like, I need your assistance here. And he was just like, ask him what he wants. Straight up. Like, ask him what he wants. Because that's an easy question to answer, but people have a hard time answering it. Do you want to do you want to lift the biggest weight you can, or do you want a six pack? Do you want to lift the biggest weight you can, or do you want to go fuck that girl? Because to me, it's a fucking easy answer. And if it's not an easy answer, you don't get to train here anymore. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And Dave really helped me kind of like navigate that sort of thing.
That's with your group, right? Because your gym is still
So the gym is like athletes, and then we have powerlifters that I coach there, but then I have like my crew.
Yeah, I know. I just want to clarify that for the listeners.
It's not a close. Yeah, it's not like it's not a club gym.
All right, so staying with that crew type of thing, it's a weird thing.
It's hard, man. It's hard to not be an asshole.
Sometimes you have to. It's I don't per se have like a crew, but there's people that train out here. And it's funny because when going back 3-4 gyms ago, whatever it was me, Todd Brock, Kenny Patterson, Mike Ruggiero, and one other guy that's from Westside. We wanted to have people come out and train because we figured we could probably help some people out. So we had this conversation, and it was like, well, what are the rules going to be? And it was funny because I don't know who said it, but the first one was, before we do that, we should probably come up with what the rules are not going to be. Because we all went through, last night. It's like this 8:30 shit stops. It's going to be 8:30-ish.
Yeah.
People have problems. People have traffic. Yeah. They shouldn't be stressed out that they're going to be fucking 10 minutes late. Yeah. And then it was a whole nother clusterfuck of what days, because I fucking work. I got things I got to do, and they all did too. And it's like, well, it's got a structure around the weekends. So Saturday squat, Sunday bench. I'm like, fuck. You know how hard that is to recover from? And then it's like, well, fuck it. They'll get acclimated. That way they can do the other shit during the week. And then it's like, well, this is the biggest one. What priority does it need to be to them? Right. As far as, because if it's their first priority, do we really want to deal with that again?
Were you still competing?
No.
Okay.
No. So if it's the first priority I don't know. There's other places that are better.
Oh, okay.
You know, there's
Yeah,
less,
yeah.
there's less, there's other places
Sure.
that are better for that.
Sure.
You know, but it's got to be a high enough priority that they're going to be there.
Yeah.
Because that's when it comes to a crew, that's the most important thing. Because if it's you training for a meet or somebody else training for a meet or just anybody that's training in general doing stupid shit that I do, I'm going to peak a couple times a year. I got to know somebody's going to be here to run the fucking monolifting spot. Because if I put 6 months
Yeah.
into trying to accomplish a certain objective and on that one certain day, there's fucking nobody here
Yeah.
or one person.
Yeah.
And I got to adjust what I put 6. Fuck. That's,
Yeah.
you know, is that me being selfish? Yeah, in a way, but they're not paying anything to come out here and train. They're getting your advice, my advice.
Well, you're
anybody
providing a
else's
service to them. Yeah.
a service, you
Yeah.
know, so it's a fucking trade. But to find, you know, it's tough.
Yeah. And people, it's hard because I try to stay like, I've gone through my phase of being like a cocky powerlifter and thinking I was better than I was and kind of having a mouth on me. Right. And I think I've gotten past that point, but there is a point where it's like the value that I bring to this group and my training group is the fact that I've trained under Louie, Laura, Shane, Hoff, I trained with Luke for a minute, trained with Chuck for a minute, like all of these people that and I've been coaching people. Well, I coached hockey, started coaching hockey when I was 14 years old, and I've been coaching powerlifting for now it's, 6 years or 7 years or whatever it is, 8 years. So that's the value that I bring. What fucking value do you bring? Because it better be a good attitude. And if it's not a good attitude, it better be promptness or ability to wrap knees or, you know what I'm saying? So for me, that's kind of part of like what I bring to the group is I watch everybody set and I disrupt my training. I never get to go fucking take a water break. Like I'm drinking water and watching every set. I'm handing out benches. And it took leaving and experiencing that to I always appreciated Hoff, but to truly appreciate the pressure that was on him when we were in that, for that group. Because there is a lot of pressure. Part of the thing was, you're not going to embarrass me. You know what I'm saying? Like as a person in this group, if you train with me, you're not going to fuck around. Like when we go to meets, you're going to be a fucking professional, whether you do good or bad. And if you say you're going to fucking do the meet, you're doing the meet unless you're too fucked up to do it. Like all of that stuff. You know what I mean? Like we're not going online and telling everybody I'm gonna, and then not doing it. Like I'm not dealing with that. So there's like clear expectations. But a lot of people, and if you don't like it, if it's not for you, that's all good. We had a kid, he's young. He's, 18, single-ply kid, awesome kid, great dude. And I believe that he is as all in as an 18-year-old senior in high school can be. But that's not enough for me. So we invited him to train with us. He came, he trained for a couple sessions. And then I just know he was on his phone. He left early one night when we were doing reverse hypers and he left. And I just had to sit him down and be like, I like you as a kid and I like you as a friend and an acquaintance and everything. And because of that, I'm going to ask you to not train with us. Because if you keep training with us, I'm going to blow up and we're not going to be friends anymore.
Yeah. Well, I mean, here's the deal, and here's kind of the reality, because you have a gym as well, right? And in that gym, I'm sure you do personal training in there as well.
Yes.
Now, if they're part of your crew, and I'm making a broad assumption here, they're probably not paying for your training, right?
Yeah,
they're paying for the gym membership, but
Yeah.
the difference is when they're in that crew, you're doing more than just training them, because you're teaching them how to train themselves.
Yeah.
Because they have to. I'm a big believer in everybody needs to learn how to auto-regulate their training if they ever want to be the best they can be. And it also makes it easier on you that's running the crew.
Yeah.
If they're already processing most of the decisions.
Yeah.
Instead of, should I do this warm-up weight again? You're like, are you fucking kidding me?
Dude, that was it when we first got out there, man.
Yeah. So now, I mean, all those are being, their dues are showing up and participating, right? So it's not a, now if they can't do that or they can't give what they need to make that crew better, then they can hire you and come in during the day and pay you whatever that is per training session.
It's a very awkward conversation, but that's real.
No, it is real.
And it's hard to say to someone without sounding like an egomaniac, where it's like, bro, like you're getting coached by like 2 certifiable, very good lifters and very like, cause Val trains with us too.
Yeah.
Like, so like you better be helping set up. You better like, I'm not setting up mini bands to bet. You know what I mean? Like there's like certain things where it's like, you sound like a tyrant, but at the end of the day, it's like the value I bring is X, Y, and Z. So the value you bring is like, I don't want to have to break down the chains. I'm going to set up the next thing we're doing. Yeah. You know what I mean? And that sounds wild. And I will do that stuff if we have to be done. But like, I need to make sure that like, it's not just a take. Cause you feel like, and I'm sure you get it in here and you've gotten in the past where it's like, well, it only takes you 2 minutes to explain this. And it's like, yeah, but it took me 10 years to figure out how to explain it and how to do it without hurting you.
But at the same time, they can still pay you the $300 or $80 per session.
Correct.
For the same thing.
Correct.
And you'll coddle them all they want.
Yeah. In my fucking flip flops when I'm not training.
Exactly.
So yeah, that's been really interesting and kind of, I've noticed out there too that it's like, if it's an 1,100 pound squat, it might as well be a 900 pound squat. They don't know. It's too big of a number for them to like 4 plates on a bench might as well be 6 plates. Doesn't matter. It's kind of the same because they haven't been around it. Now I will say it's grown a lot in the past couple of years out there because I've been sponsoring meets and going out there, and I competed at the gym we bought probably like a year and a half before we bought it, kind of like pump up the multiply stuff and all that. But like I was saying, I forget her name, the lady we were talking to before. Like there's the monoliths in here. What is there? 6 monos in here. There's probably, I would say we have 3 monos in my gym. I would say there's probably 10 monoliths in the whole state, tops. So that kind of tells you like where the state of powerlifting is. Now it's a small state, but we're trying to build that so that people can see this as a legitimate, because like track and field's not big there, wrestling's not big there. So those like sports that kind of draw people to powerlifting and lifting weights, they don't have the same pull, so it's not quite as big. New England as a whole is growing, I would say, and we're trying to put on really good meets and like big sponsorships for those meets to like show people this can be like an awesome sport and this can be, you know, a fun, like a great thing to invest in and all that. It's just a little different because there's not as much history there. I think like the only, you know, like Gene Reichlach was New England, Panora's New England. I'm sure I'm forgetting some
Russ
people.
Barlow, I think.
Yeah, I'm sure I'm forgetting some guys. But as far as like heavy fucking hitters, like big name powerlifting people, not a lot of them have come out of the Northeast. And so we're kind of trying to build it up from there. And you got to start small. So we've got a bunch of high school kids that are lifting now, and they're doing a great job. And they are understanding like the ins and outs of it, or trying to learn. And you can see the kids who really want to learn. Like some kids just want to come in and lift weights, and some adults, they just want to come in and lift weights. They don't care about the history. And then some of them will say like, hey, I was looking online and I saw this, like, do you know this person? Or have you ever, like, what was it like with this and whatever? You can see the like extra interest. And those are the people that we try to like really invest our time into to show like the right way to do things.
Yeah. Now, when you get outside of your group, is the powerlifting helping the gym or neutral or hurting? Yeah.
So I think that people from the outside looking in might think that it's maybe a little intimidating, you know, cause out here, like, I mean, you go into fucking Crunch Fitness or whatever, and there's a fucking monolith there. And there's some guy there that benches 5 plates raw, and he has for 10 years. And he doesn't even know why. You know what I mean? I think that it will eventually grow into a very strong culture. It's starting very small right now. So I don't think it's hurting the gym. I think it's kind of helping us find like a little bit of a different identity, because the gym that we had purchased was basically, it was primarily an athletic training facility with powerlifters there. The bread and butter was the athletes. And I like training athletes. It's fun. Yeah. But it's like, it's not my passion. You know what I mean? My passion is powerlifting. And then the overall thing is like, my passion is like helping people progress. But like, if we're going to zone it down, it's powerlifting. And if we're going to zone it down, it's gear. And if we're going to zone it down, it's fucking multiply.
Yeah, but you have to broaden it out, right? Because it's if it's an athlete training gym, you have a hockey player in there, their number one priority is hockey. Yes. In the same way the powerlifters is powerlifting.
Yes.
So
the carryover, like something that I learned a lot about, I think, at Westside and being around Dave is the sort of, I think I've heard you talk about it, where it's like, you're squatting and there's 6 guys watching you squat and they're all telling you everything you're doing fucking wrong. If you pick the bar, if your feet are this much too wide, you've got a guy saying, hey, motherfucker, kick your feet in, whatever. So you learn how to like adjust based on sort of like, I don't want to say intuitive, but like basically you look at someone and you're like, well, he's wider than this other guy, but I can see because the angles it's going to work or whatever. And that's helped with a lot of the athletes, because most athletes have a coach that teaches them how to lift weights that has no fucking idea how to lift weights. So we're kind of the cleanup crew with that. And we've been able, like the technical aspects of like our college athletes when they come back, we only have them for 3 months. How strong can you get someone in 3 months? Like kind of, but like not huge leaps and bounds, but you can put a lot of good work in that will help them sort of express their strength through helping them get better technically.
Yeah.
So that's what we've been doing with a lot of the athletes. And like the other big thing is out here, like, I mean, how many fucking blown biceps, blown off knees, and blown pecs have you seen in your career? Like, it's not as prevalent out there. So injuries are more worrisome to people. So when people get a ding, that wouldn't even, like, people get an injury that maybe wouldn't stop you or I from that training session, might put somebody down for a week because they don't know what to do with it.
Well, that's a weird one. That's a weird one, man, in a big fucking way.
It's hard. Yeah,
right?
it's hard with athletes too because they're nervous.
Yeah, where I want to come back to that real quick, but what I want to say about the athletes is if you only have them for 3 months, then they go back to the whatever school that they're from. They're still doing their strength and conditioning there. If you can clean up their technique on all their movements in that 3 months, then they're going to get even if the strength coach is an idiot, they're going to get way more out of it.
Yes.
And just from that
per rep, that's what I said to. We have a kid. He plays D end at Cornell, and I was explaining to him, like, if you showed your coaches my numbers and what I look like, and asked them to write what they think I did for workouts, they would give you probably 25% more shit than I do. But I can just get more out of each exercise. Dave taught me that. Like, I don't need to do tricep extensions with 2 plates. I do it with a quarter and pay attention to what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Right? So what I was explaining to him was, I was like, if your coach has you doing a 5x5 and these fucking goofballs that are on your team that don't know how to squat, they're only getting 10 reps of work out of those 25 reps. You can get 25 good reps. So you're going to get more work per set, and you're going to be able to go past them as far as the strength gains, as far as your physical attributes, whatever. Because they always have these like unrealistic goals for these kids. It's like, oh, he wants me to put on 20 pounds over the summer and get faster and not get on drugs. And you know what I mean? It's that's not going to happen. Yeah. So you got to kind of pick your spots with them. And we've been very successful with a lot of the athletes with that stuff, because you help them technically, they learn their body better. They know how to train better, and they get more out of it. And then they have better awareness for when they're in their sport. They know how to, you know what I'm saying? They can like function. They have a better, like if someone doesn't know how to box squat and you teach them how to box squat correctly, they have better proprioception and like where they are in the universe in relation to everything else. When they play their sport, they're automatically going to be better and more aware. Yeah. Based on what I've seen. I mean, we took that kid, not to like, I don't want to sit here and brag on this kid, but when he showed up to our facility last summer, he was 4th string at Cornell. Shout out Max. This kid's the fucking man. Anyway, 4th string, didn't play a single snap the whole season. Showed up, could not body weight squat without pain in his knee. Seth actually helped me with a little bit of the rehab for him. He's like, you can rehab this kid. By the end of the summer, squatted 425, pulled 500 for 3. His 225 reps went from 7 to 14. And this year he split time with the starter. And the coaches were like, what'd you fucking do? Like, how is your get off, like his get off speed? They said it was until he's like, I just benched against bands. Like he literally did our workouts with some jumps added to it. He trained with me all summer. He didn't like box squat with a camber bar and shit, but like he did all the same accessories as us. And all he did was become like, what did he say the other day? His coach said he had more like ownership of his body or something like that. And you can see it happen. And then it just applies to the field, because then it's just putting it in here,
Yes.
you know?
Now, getting back to the injury part, this is always a interesting landscape, right? Because let's say if it's you and say myself and a few people that you trust very well, and we're off mic, and you're like, man, I fucking this is, you know, that injury conversation is going to go a little different. It's going to be like, dude, like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Like, what do you mean? You know,
Yeah.
can you like move it? Can
How
you
bad
bend
is
it?
it?
What
Yeah.
is it? You know, and that's probably the most honest, brutal conversation because it allows you to weigh it.
Yeah.
Like, okay, this is probably something I can push through. You
Yeah.
know, but now you go one step out, right? And now it's somebody in your crew, which still is very open conversation because it's a different type of dynamic.
Sure.
Then it becomes outside of the crew. Now it's a client. And you're like, ooh, wait, a gym member.
Yeah.
Like, oh, wait.
Got to be a little more conservative with them.
a lot, or it's an online client.
And very much conservative with those
Yeah.
ones.
So
Yeah.
talk to me about how you navigate those landscapes.
So if I had a guy tell me, you know, Dr. Tyler Kelly?
No, I
He's
don't
at
think
I
I've
think
heard
he's over in anyway, he's in the Columbus area. He told me, and I've used this with people, it's like, if you're doing a movement and something hurts and you stop doing that movement, and it stops hurting, proceed with caution. If it hurts and then you stop doing it, it continues hurting, stop doing that and move on to something else. So that's kind of how the first thing with people, like, ooh, this hurts my knee. Okay, does it hurt your knee when you stop doing it? No? Okay, lower the weight and kind of lean into it, and let's like see where we're at. I basically, if I have to start questioning what I'm saying to somebody, I tell them to see a professional.
Yeah.
As soon as I feel like, I give it to somebody else, because I'm not trying to like fake the funk with that shit. Like, if I don't know what I'm talking about, especially like if it's someone in my crew, I'm like, come on, motherfucker. Like, are you hurt or are you what is it? But if it's somebody who's a client or a gym member or someone online, I'll talk to them depending on how well I know them. Is kind of like, if I don't know them well, I will direct them to somebody who knows stuff. You know what I mean?
I mean, to be honest about the whole thing, dings are part of the process.
That's hard to explain to somebody who doesn't have them, though.
Well, it's also hard to explain when you got a fuck ton of therapists, physical therapists out there trying to tell people they're not.
Right, yeah.
And like, the fuck do you know?
Yeah.
You squat 315.
Right.
What? I've never had a ding before I squatted fucking 365.
Right,
You know?
yeah. And it's hard to tell people, like, it sounds like that old tough guy shit where it's like, well, it's just part of it. And it's like, but it is, though. Like, it's
is.
the reality of the situation. Like, if you're pushing yourself, one of my hockey coaches told me a long time, like, the closer you get to peaking your physical ability, the closer you are to injury, right? Because the peak is your best performance you could possibly do. The furthest you can fucking do it, like, whatever. You benched the most that your triceps can handle, and one more pound, your tricep falls off. Mm-hmm. So the better you are, the closer you are to injury. So it's just going to fucking happen. And explaining that to people is hard without kind of having this like hardo, tough guy, like, we'll get over it type of deal. But there is part of it that's like, you're going to get hurt, figure it out. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And so part of the culture with the gym, a lot of them haven't seen the injuries. Like, I know people personally who have blown their patellar tendon completely off fucking kneecap into their quad and come back and squatted 1,000 pounds. Mm-hmm. So to me, a tweaked hamstring seems like a very low level priority, but to the person who's never had a tweaked hamstring, it's a fucking end of the world for the 17-year-old kid.
Well, yeah, I mean, all injuries suck.
Yes.
You know, there's no doubt. I mean,
but you got to like calm yourself, right?
Yeah.
Like, and accept that, like, cause now, like, if you come in, you've had all the injuries.
Yeah. All of it.
If you come in here and you fuck something up, you're going to know in the first 10 minutes, like, all right, should I calm down about this? It's going to be fine. Or am I going to have to make a phone call?
Yeah.
But getting to that point means you've got to have a couple of phone calls that you've made in the past where you fucked yourself up.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and either way, it still sucks,
It's
right? 'Cause
terrible.
It's like,
Yeah.
fuck, how long is this going to take?
Mm-hmm. That's the first.
You know, it's like, come on. You know?
Yeah. How long am I going to be out for? Like, how far is the meet? Am I going to be able to train tomorrow? Am I going to be able to work tomorrow? Like, all that stuff, especially for people who are outside of our industry. Like, for me, it's like, I mean, I could break both of my legs and I could still work.
No, that's a big thing. It's a huge thing for people.
Yeah, it's different for like even somebody who's like an office, like a desk jockey person. If they tweak their back and then they have to go sit in an office chair for fucking 7 hours the next day, they're fucked.
Yeah.
That's going to be brutal. And so kind of trying to teach people to, like you said, auto-regulation is like really huge. Same thing with injury for me. It's like, all right, where are we at here? 1 out of 10. 10, I never want to lift weights again. 1, you stubbed your toe. Like where are we? And it's like, how bad is this? Like, because the worst thing you've experienced is the worst thing you've experienced. So I think because I kind of got numb to it out here, because it's like you come in and you look and it's like, it's like Chuck, Jake, and Luke, the Mummy crew, they all have some sort of wrap on them.
Yeah.
They've all got the liniment. They've all got something going on, right? Or they're benching to a fucking saver pad or whatever, you know? And so to me, that's just part of it, you know? That was just part of lifting. But if you've never seen that or been around it, it can be a little bit jarring. So like when I say I tore my pec, like it bruised a little bit, but I didn't fucking rip it off, and I didn't need surgery. It was almost a year ago, and you know how it is, it just keeps tweaking and whatever.
Pain in the ass.
But people are like, they get kind of freaked out by it because they've never even heard those words before. They don't know like torn pec. That sounds crazy to them. And to us, it's like, well, did you need surgery? You know what I mean? Like, are they, you know, and then on the other side of things, it's like, I've got guys who are OGs in this sport. My buddy Mike just had his tricep reattached, and like, it ain't shit to him. He's fucking training again already, and he got it done earlier this week. And he's already doing leg press and fucking everything else. But that's because he's blown a bicep, torn a quad, broken an arm.
Just another thing.
So to him, he's like, he had the best fucking thing. He said he really tweaked his back bad. He's in his 40s, but he still gets after it, right? And he was like, I was sad about it for a day. And then I realized, like, I don't have a fucking end zone for this. I don't have an end game. So I'm just going to keep training, and training's going to suck for a little bit, and then this is going to get better. I'm just going to train around it. And I think if people could get in that mindset, you obviously have that mindset. Yeah. You train through whatever. Yeah. It's like, how bad is this going to be? I'm not going to stop training. My training is just going to change.
No, it just does. I mean, the difference with my training over the years is I don't compete. You know, I quit competing in 2005. You know, whatever.
You can't get under a straight bar, correct?
No. Okay. No, I can't. And I'm blessed for it. I don't see it as a bad thing because I would just destroy the fuck out of myself. Yeah. But there's other bars. There's other things to be able to do that. Where because there is not a meet for a safety squat bar, you know, board press.
Right.
You know, bench.
Unfortunately.
And pulling off blocks.
Yeah.
I used to joke and say we need a lumber lifting federation where it's got a box squat, the yoke bar, bench off boards, pull off blocks.
Dude, sign me the fuck up.
Yeah,
I'm here for it.
And that would, but because of that, I still lay my training out to be able to peak a couple times a year, but I can move the day. That's the difference. Like if you got a meet, it's this day, right? And you know, 6 weeks out from that meet, you're going to start to feel like Haas. It's going to get bad, you know, and you just want it to be less bad than the last time, but it's still bad.
Yeah.
But if you felt it start to come on, if it's the bicep tendonitis or, shoulder, whatever, it's normal for everybody, back, you start to feel it, you can back it, say, okay, I'm just going to back down a couple weeks, bring it back up, move this date 3 weeks later.
Oh, yeah.
Then you're able to mitigate so much more because of that. It's just when I lay my objectives out for the year, I plan it for October, knowing damn well it's probably going to happen in November or December.
Right.
But if all goes well, which never happens.
Yeah.
Right. And then it will. Now when it's a date, this is where with the washed up meatheads, where I don't know if I'm a big fan of doing meets. Because now you got to meet and you're already mentally fucked up like we are.
Yeah.
Then you're doing it no matter what.
Right.
Granted, there's 3 meets every weekend now.
Yeah,
so you could push it.
Sure.
But
it's, but like someone with that sort of mindset is not going to push it.
No.
If you decided on a meet and it's fucking on the 7th,
I'm doing it.
You're doing it. You're not doing the one on the 14th because you're a bitch if you did it on the 14th because you said you were going to do the 7th.
Yes, yes.
And that's like, you can't teach that. That's like people either have that in them
Yeah.
or they don't. And you obviously you do. And I believe that I do too, where it's like, I said I was going to do this. I'm committed to it. So I'm going to fucking do it.
Yeah. See, I took that factor away of a set day, but it's still there on a floating day.
Yeah.
Which allows that to pivot.
And you can still train hard and
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Oh
you
yeah.
can still
Still
get
do all
after
the
it.
stupid shit I want to do, but it's like, okay, look, this tore the tricep. Okay, that's gonna have to push this back because now I gotta manage this.
Yeah.
And it's not where when I was still competing, oh, tore the pec. Shit, the meet's in 4 weeks. Figure it out.
It's and you have to have like extreme trust in yourself, I think, when you start doing that stuff where you're like, I have to figure it out.
Yeah.
Like, you know, going into this last WPO meet, now I'm coming off of 2 mutil-ply bombs in a row. And one of them was on squat, one of them was on bench. And I'm going into this WPO meet like, fuck my life. Like, I have to get through this, right? Now, meanwhile, my whole training cycle I've done basically with one guy and Val. And so haven't had the greatest amount of help. I've had good help, but not a lot of it. And, you know, dealing with my pec and stuff, I missed 3 speed bench days consecutively.
Yeah.
Because of travel. We moved the gym from a downstairs basement to a fucking other place. So think about that shit with 2,000 square feet of rubber flooring mats. Like,
Oh yeah.
it just
sucks.
fucks you up. You know what I'm saying?
Terrible.
So I never want to move one of those again. But so I go to take my opener, my bench shirt, and it's slow as fuck. Like, it was hard. And I was like, man, if I get 3 squats in, I don't know if I can get that. And I start looking at other stuff and paying attention. And I'm like, okay, don't stress. Just double down on your fucking speed bench because you've missed 3 weeks of it. And for me, speed is everything because I miss up here, right? And so for me, positioning and speed over strong triceps. And I know that about my bench. So what I started doing was getting on Sundays when we speed bench, I was getting to the gym a half hour earlier than I thought I needed to do all of my warm-ups, to not just lay on the bench and get through the workout. Like, I doubled down on my speed work. I did not worry about my max effort stuff. I did it, you know, but like all my heavy benches, like I paid attention to them, but my priority was my speed because I knew I could stay whole and it could push me. And all I did was I did like 1 week of minis, 1 week of monsters, 1 week of purples, go to the meet, right? And then I went 3 for 3 on my bench. But it was one of those things where I had extreme trust in my knowledge of my body and how things work, that I was kind of injured, kind of beat down, and basically behind in my training, where I just said, okay, I'm just going to trust. I'm not going to lower my opener. I'm not going to look for a different bench shirt. Just going to trust that I know what the fuck I'm doing. And I said it to Val. It's like, we got home from that session. I'm like, I'm doubling down on speed work. It's over. It's all good. Like, I know I can do this. And it made a huge difference. But the only way you can do that is if you've been through it before and been through the injuries and know how to adjust. And you're like, okay, I have to be strong on this day. It doesn't really matter if I'm strong 3 weeks before.
Yeah, that's huge.
It
doesn't matter if you're strong 10 weeks out either.
Who cares?
Yeah.
Who fucking cares? Like,
Yeah.
It's hard though when you're used to, especially with conjugate stuff, where it's like PR, 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 PR. And then all of a sudden you're 50 pounds off of a PR from 2 years ago. And you're like, what the fuck? I'm going backwards. I should quit. You know, and it's like, no, it's like you're 15 weeks out from a meet. For all intents and purposes, you're a fucking bodybuilder that takes a heavy lift before he trains.
Yeah.
Like,
So I always said I would call them PRs, and I had DF PRs, which I call drug-free PRs, even though you're not drug-free, but it's not the same.
Yeah.
Because your body weight's down 15 pounds. You're on a cruise type of thing.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like, nah, man, that's a DF PR. Like, what the fuck is that? Like a drug-free PR. Like, dude, you ain't drug-free.
It's all about framing stuff. And that's something Dave taught me too, with like how to frame, like how to sort of reframe stuff and restructure stuff emotionally and mentally where you're okay with it. And you're not being a bitch where you say like, oh, it doesn't matter.
Well, that's no solution to that.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because if it is wrong, you need to figure out why.
Right.
If it doesn't matter, it doesn't fly.
Yeah. And I think being at the like OG conjugate Lou sort of like, well, it shouldn't matter what you did on Monday. It shouldn't affect you on Wednesday is just not the case.
That's not the case.
Once you get to a certain point, it's like, dude, if I pull a pin 3 rack pull against quadded purples on Monday, I'm not going to a one board in my shirt on Wednesday. You fucking crazy? Because it does matter. Because we're all human beings. Like, we get broken down. So being able to like recognize that and know that's like, okay, I had a hard week this week and I'm 12 weeks out and my supplements are down and I'm 30 pounds off of a PR. I'm actually in a pretty good space right now. You just have to be careful because that lackadaisicalness can kind of seep in where you're like, well, it's off season. Well, it's off season. I'm fine. And then all of a sudden it's like, I've been in off season, it's fine mode for 3 months.
Yeah.
Like, fuck this.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, no, I need to fucking hit the gas. This literally just happened to me like 2 or 3 weeks ago where I'm like, okay, like enough with the, oh, my boo-boo pec hurt and, you know, this and that. Like, it's time to fucking train because I've got super finals in like 13 weeks.
Yeah.
Or semifinals or whatever. And trying to flip that switch. I think the like overarching, like the big thing is like, you can't teach experience. And all the stuff that we've talked about like today, like I'd say 90% of it is like the solutions come with time and experiencing the different things.
And paying attention.
Well, yeah, not just like allowing it to happen to you.
Yeah.
Like noting, you know, I have a file on my computer, started 2018 after nationals. I have every single, like I have my books from beforehand where I wrote down my workouts or whatever. There's probably a 6 or 8 month span at Westside that I didn't write anything down besides my PRs because I didn't want to be the guy with the book. But I have a file on my computer called Road to the WPO. And it was my training from nationals in 2017, I think, to, I started it then to the first WPO when it came back. And I've written down my body weight, the gear, every exercise I've done, every weight that I've touched. Like I've documented everything. So going into this last WPO meet, we were doing a safety squat bar and it was like week 2. And I started thinking about it. I'm like, wait, hold on a second. Do I need to take a free squat next week? When do I take a free squat? Oh shit. Do I take it 2 weeks out, 3 weeks? When do I do it? So I looked, and I just looked through my phone, and I found the best 1,100 pound squat I have had in a meet. And then I just rolled back through my shit, and I looked. I'm like, okay, when did I do it? Okay, 3 weeks out, I did it. All right, next week I'm free squatting. And I can just kind of like go back and have that as a guide. The only way you can do that is if you pay attention, though.
Yeah.
It's the experience plus like monitoring actually what the fuck is going on, because experience alone isn't going to do it.
No.
You know what I mean? You have to like,
God, no.
you know what I mean? If you crash your car every time it snows, it doesn't matter how many times you drive in the fucking snow. You can have all the experience in the world, but unless you pay attention, you're fucked.
Well, if you don't learn from the mistakes, you know, then you're screwed.
100%.
It was what, 6 or 7 years ago you started helping people online?
Yeah.
And you were still at Westside at the time?
Yeah, I had 8 clients when I moved to Columbus.
Okay.
And I started a Facebook group to just try to, like, whatever that worked. They were paying $50 a month, so whatever that is, was that like $400 or whatever it is? It might have been less than that. And then it kind of grew from there. But that was my first time coaching people online, but they were people that I had hands-on first.
Yeah.
That was the base when I first moved out to Ohio, because I didn't have a job and I was living on a couch.
Yeah, so I'm sure that went over real well.
With those people?
With the people at Westside.
Yeah, like what, coaching people online?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they weren't super into it, for sure. I kind of at first kept it to myself. I didn't really push it. I actually, when I was having problems with Lou, I talked to AJ about it. And I didn't really know him. We had talked a few times, and I asked him, and he was like, well, you coach people online and have like a business? I said, yeah. And he's like, Lou doesn't really like when people make money off of Conjugate. And it's like, well, I got to survive, right? Mm-hmm. So I think that caused some issues in there too. I always tried to be respectful of like the, what happens here stays here shit. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like there's certain aspects of the training there that even if you tried to explain it, you couldn't. You know what I'm saying?
You can't. And there, I mean, the other thing too is, and I'm sure you get this as well, everybody wants to hear, West Side stories. Mm-hmm. I'm like, look, I can tell you stories till we're blue in the face,
Right.
but I'm not going to do it.
Yeah.
Right? Because even if I didn't like the people that I was with, or if I did like them, I'm not going to expose them and put there's not that many people there. It's pretty easy by process of elimination to figure out who we're talking about.
Yeah.
And there's other things that are just best amongst people that were there because the context is weird.
Yes.
There's no better way to explain, and it's, I've had enough of you guys on, in the past year to kind of fill in a lot of the blanks from after I left to,
Sure.
where it is, currently or, 2 years ago, whatever. I filled in a lot because you always wonder, like, what stayed, what, because obviously the training got better, you guys got stronger. So mistakes were made through my time there, the people before us, and those are not being repeated.
Yeah.
The injuries are not the same injuries; they're different injuries, which means a lot of the things got better. Some things didn't. Some things all stayed the same. But there's a weird, and there's no better word than weird.
Yeah.
There's a weird context that the only way you're going to understand it is if you were there for more than a few years.
Yeah. And like seeing you got to be there to see the cycles of like what the training was like. Cause your training looked different than mine.
Yeah.
And mine looked different the first 6 months than it did the last 6 months.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And, I used to get like pissed off at Louie about that, like how shit would change, but I don't program for my lifters now the same I did 6 months. He was trying, like, when it comes down to it, he was trying to do his best. He was doing what he thought would work or whatever he was feeling in the moment. And as a coach now with a little more experience on my hand, I get that. And like, if Conjugate is the same, like if the Conjugate, like the book of methods, right? Mm-hmm. Like if everybody just ran that with their eyes closed, still, it's not doing its fucking job.
No.
We need to be evolving. We need to be changing. We need to be making it better, right? Because that's what Lou did. That was the first thing he did, was like take what he knew and elevate it. And then the first bunch of guys elevated. Then the bands came and all that stuff, right? So we're trying to I used to get mad at him about changing stuff, but you have to kind of accept it as part of the method.
Well, then it's experimenting too.
And you might be wrong.
Exactly. And after a while, you don't want to be the guy that's being experimented with anymore.
Yeah.
You're on borrowed time. Let them do it.
Yeah. Dimitri said that one time when I was there. He's like, what did he say? He's like, we're all just lab rats for Louie. And it's like, it's kind of true.
No, it is 100% true. And that's great. If your body can handle being that lab rat.
Yeah.
Once that threshold's been crossed, it's like, no, you guys do that. We're going to do this. Oh, fuck, it worked real well for you guys.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll do it.
I'll watch from over here.
It's like a bench shirt, right? It's like a new bench shirt. You never put it on. You give it to the other guys to put on.
You try it
like,
first.
Man, you get a new shirt. This is awesome. A month later, you're taking it back.
Yeah, I think that like the evolution of the training and watching other people maybe get broke doing something, like something Dave said to me the first time I got on the board was, it's not just your name up there. It's your name on top of everybody else's fucking name who have been there.
Yeah.
And that put a lot of stuff in context for me. And that put a lot of stuff in perspective for me. Because my 1065 that got me on the board the first time, I ended up doing 1075 a few months later, but 1065 isn't 1065 if Greg doesn't go 1060. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And so on and down the line.
There's always streaks under the name.
Right. Yeah. Yes. So like I really appreciate that part of it and pushing that and the history of what you all did and the mistakes that were made and the injuries so that we wouldn't get them. You know what I'm saying? Because if everybody at Westside when I got there was still getting hurt the same way that you guys got hurt, what's the fucking point?
No, there wouldn't be one.
What are we fucking doing?
No, there wouldn't be one. They'll be fucked up. But when you're working with the people online, it changes, and you've been doing it for a long enough period now that you don't see them walk in the door with slouched shoulders. You don't see them walk in the door angry, depressed, looking ready to train. I mean, you're oh man, you have like almost no context.
Yeah.
So how have you navigated being able to build that client base?
Yep.
With not a marketing question.
Okay.
A success point, because you don't last a long time as an online coach in today's world. You don't last as long as you do if you're not producing results.
Yeah.
There's it's an industry that catches a lot of heat, and I've put a lot of heat out on it because 90% of the people are gone in 3 months because it's just a scam racket for them.
Yeah.
The ones that are lasting now close to a decade, that's a different conversation because you've had to figure out how to make it work.
Well, it's one of those things where clickbait works until it stops working, right? Like as far as the marketing aspect, all the like the bullshit, like, and you know it, right? Like it's better to have a slow, genuine, authentic growth than a really fast bullshit viral growth. Because all those people, and we know them, all of a sudden 10,000 followers, and then 2 months later they don't even fucking lift weights anymore. So it does have to be sort of results driven. I think that part of the online coaching stuff is like cult of personality a little bit. People will pick you to coach them because they vibe with you for some reason, right? So my lifters, I tend to get a lot of guys covered in tattoos, lots of dudes from the hardcore community, whatever, lots of people who are big fans of Westside or whatever, right? So I think that's part of it. And then the other thing is just like the biggest thing with the online coaching is telling people this happens slower than in person. If I have you for 10 weeks and I see you twice a week, and I have someone else for 10 weeks and I see them online, your progress is going to be faster than that person.
Yeah.
Because it's real-time information. Like these people, I have to tell them, okay, next week when you squat, you need to do this, this, and this. And I'll tell them, like, write down, like, have a journal, have like squat, bench, deadlift. And the cues that I'm telling you in this little paragraph that I'm writing you, write them down and look at them before you fucking squat. So you know. So I'm not writing the same thing to you next week, right? So that's part of it. I think also part of it is doing things that have like a net neutral benefit as far as movements where they might not be 100% optimal. They might not be what I would do, but they keep people interested and they keep people having fun. Because 9 times out of 10 people who are getting online coaching, they still want to have fun when they train. I don't give a fuck about fun when I'm training. I give the fun.
No, I get it,
You know what I mean? Like, I don't care if you told me only squatting with whatever is I would just do it. But a lot of people want to have fun. So I'll do stuff that maybe isn't something that I would use. It's not going to hurt anybody, not going to make anyone go backwards, but it's going to keep them interested in the training. Same thing with some of the like accessory movements where they might be a little too cute for me. Like, I'm just going to dumbbell bench and rollbacks and like, but people might want like, they might want an elbow out press with incline with bands, and that's fun for them and they like it and it's a sexy video for the internet or whatever. So I do stuff like that. Same thing with a lot of the bench builders and deadlift builder stuff that I post, where it's like a movement that looks kind of funky. It's like something that we might do once or twice that feels really good and gives you a good pump, or certain people might find a direct correlation, but a lot of times it's something that's different and fun and exciting. So with the online stuff, I've tried to do that quite a bit, and I've evolved how I program based on the feedback that I've gotten from people. So if I'm training person A in person, they're going to box squat way more than the person that I'm training online, because I can help them with their box squat to a point where that's going to carry over to their free squat, raw or equipped. If they're online, I'm going to have them free squat more often so they have more practice with that specific thing. So I think the people online need a little more specificity, because I'm not standing right there and saying like, hey, okay, you're doing that right now for your box squat, but just understand that when you free squat, look at your feet, you're going to have to tick them in a little bit. You're going to have all that stuff, right? So the training changes a little bit with that too, because, and people that I train in person, they'll walk in and I'll say, how are you feeling? Do you want to get after it today? Like, how are you doing? Whereas as the people online, if they're in my group and they're just getting like the programming and video review, they're going to get the program. And I'll tell people, if you feel like shit, don't go full dick, but I can't really regulate that for them. So I think that there's probably some value in that because they have to learn the auto regulation and they have to learn all that stuff. But it comes at a cost, right? So I've had people that I've trained online for years and had little problems here and there, and then I see them in person once, and we make 2 tweaks, and we fix stuff that has been a problem for a really long time.
Yeah.
I can say this as an online, like I've made my bread on the internet, right? Nothing beats hands-on coaching.
Yeah.
Nothing. But to the fucking guy who's got no crew that trains in fucking, east ass fuck nowhere, online I can get someone really far with that. You know what I mean? The criticism that I'll get is that, like, how can I teach someone to bench when I'm not a good bencher? Right? So I've heard that. I don't know, man. A 520 floor press is pretty fucking good. I know how to get strong. Now my equipped bench is only 633 or 638, but
good as opposed to what?
Well, that's what I'm saying. I'm not for most of the guys that I'm coaching, girls that I'm coaching are not super elite, but I have 4 guys that I've coached, 2 of which were drug-free, to bigger benches than I have. So that speaks volumes too. When I tell people that, when it's like, oh, I've got 2 guys that bench like 680, 2 weight classes down from me, I know how to coach that.
So those type of things confuse me because typically, the criticism's always going to come from the top up. In other words, somebody who's got more clients or is busier, stronger, however you want to define it, than what you are, doesn't have the time to make statements like that.
Yeah.
Or they're already humbled enough to not make statements like that. So usually that complaint's probably coming from somebody that benches less than you.
Well, right. Well, yeah.
Which means they shouldn't be even giving you advice in the first place.
Right. And generally that sort of stuff is sort of through the grapevine type of thing. Not many people are going to, because like you can smell the credibility when like you said, you don't last doing what I'm doing if you're full of shit and you're not good at what you do. Yeah. And I used to have like imposter syndrome with it where I wouldn't kind of like pump my own tires, but like I'm pretty good at what I do. I bought a gym and a house off the strength of what I do. Like I'm pretty good at it. The hard part for a powerlifting, particularly mutil-ply powerlifting, like I coach raw guys, but everyone knows me as the mutil-ply guy, right? I've got 2 guys over 2,000 pound totals raw. No one cares though. Is getting people's attention without sounding and looking corny. You know how social media is like, it's weird. Like it's like navigating that with our demographic where you've got 40-year-old dudes that don't give a fuck about social media, but you want to coach them and they don't really understand how it works. So bridging that gap has probably been like one of the more difficult things. 9 times out of 10, if I get on the phone with somebody or I get voice messaging with them, they get it. Cause again, like I've trained with all these people. I know what I'm talking about. You know what I mean? And something that really lit a fire under my ass in the past year, as far as like becoming a better coach, cause you can get complacent, you know how it goes. I was bitching about the help that I have at the gym with my crew to Dave. And I don't mean to kiss his ass this whole podcast, but he said to me, I was like, I don't know what to do, man. I'm not getting good enough help. Like my handouts are junk. Like I'm having a hard time. This was early on. And he was just like, well, sometimes you just have to fucking get better. And this is going to be a testament to see if you're actually full of shit or if you're actually a good coach. If you can coach these people, to coach them into how you need to be handled and how they need to act and how they do that, that's going to show whether or not you actually know what the fuck you're doing. And I took that as like he wasn't trying to be a dick. He was just saying like, you got to figure this out. And so that's really motivated me to like continue to grow as a coach. And I think it's really helped me where it's like, okay, I'm going to make it 100% certain that everyone knows that I'm not full of shit, that I know what I'm fucking talking about, that I'm confident in it, and that I can help people get better.
Well, there's a lot of things that I didn't realize this until I started doing seminars eons ago. And there's, when you're training with the best people around and through the different crews that you were with, there's a lot of things you take for granted.
Dude.
Like a lift off. Right? Just things, just stupid shit. Like even when you're watching lifters and the crews that you've been a part of, you're not typically looking for, are they grabbing the bar even? You just assume that low hanging fruit's done, right? Yeah. And
like
so
a base level of confidence.
yeah, because you're looking like, is the bar in the, is it what, where's the head? You're looking at these more nuanced things that are bigger problems, the better somebody gets.
Right. Yeah.
Right. They're not even problems when people are just starting, because everything's a fucking problem. Right. So it's the last thing you're going to look at.
Yeah.
So what you're dealing with this crew is, fuck, for 2 decades, you just assumed people knew how to lift a bench out. And if you got a bad one, you're like, the fuck?
Yeah.
You know, what the hell? Now they're all bad.
Right.
Because nobody showed them.
Yeah. We had to have like this is pretty cool. The first time I got my knees wrapped out there, my buddy Josh, I love the kid, but he was nervous as fuck to wrap my knees. And I was only going up to like 10:30 or something.
Yeah.
It wasn't crazy, but he was nervous and I could tell. So I had Val wrap my knees that night. We tried it another night. It didn't really work. And then I was like, how am I going to get this kid to just like do it and be confident and know that he can fucking do this? I've showed him what to do, like how he can do it. We're speed benching one day and we're kind of winding down. We're doing the last couple bullshit push downs, whatever. And we've got like a Tabata clock on the wall that you can start. I had 2 rolled up knee wraps and I just tossed them to him. And I go, boom, you got 3 minutes, wrap them. And he's like, and I'm like, I don't care. Wrap them. Show me. This is what's going to happen at the WPO when you're handling me. And you're going to have 5 top 10 lifters surrounding you, seeing if you're doing it fucking right. And he was like, oh shit. And then he just handled it. Never had a problem since. He just needed that like little bit of a push. With the handouts, it was another thing. All he needed was to see somebody else handing me out. And I think he took it as like a personal thing where he was like, I'm going to get better at this. And now he can hand me out whatever. But it took like a coaching moment, because it's exactly what you said. Because out here, I remember a very specific time where a dude gave me a handout and I threw it right back in the rack. I was like, what the fuck are you doing? But that's because I just like, people should just know how to do it. Then you go to a different culture, they don't necessarily know how. You got to teach them. You can't be mad at them for not knowing. And it's like, can you explain the nuance of what a good handout is?
Yeah.
After you've had, because Hoff gives the best handouts I've ever fucking got. He knows exactly where to put it. And it's like, can you explain that to somebody with a big weight? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And trying to, you know, so, and trust them to take care of you if things go wrong and all that stuff. So it's like, how good of can you coach someone to basically be a coach? Because that's the other part of being in a crew is like, for a long time, I'd rack a bar and come out from under it and no one in the group would say anything. And it's like, guys, like, let's go. Like, what did I look like? Am I too fucking wide? Am I round? Like, what's going on? And now it's become a thing where I'm getting coached in my sets. The right things are being said. I don't have to worry about as much coming out and looking at the video and coaching it because now they're learning how to do it. And
how did you go about that process?
Repetitive and explaining to them why I'm saying to them. Like, excuse me. If I say, this is what's happening with your feet, you're too wide, you look like a TP, not a upside down field goal post, this is why, this is what I'm looking at, then they understand. So when they look at me, they can see the same thing, especially with that Josh kid. Like, we have a lot of the same thing. We'll get too wide, we kind of round. And so it's a lot easier when I'm explaining to him, this is why I'm having you do this. And then he knows what to look for with me because he understands like the application of it. That, and also like having Val there, who is a really good communicator with that stuff too, is very helpful. Because I might say something or she might pick up on something and she'll like kind of quietly explain to somebody like, this is what he means, or this is what I see, or whatever. And over time it just happens. It's like the same thing as at like at Westside, you were just expected to coach.
Yeah.
Like, you just had to, even if you're just like, say fucking something, right? And if you say the wrong thing, someone's gonna be like, shut the fuck up. But try to say something so that we're getting coached, so that we at least, at the very least, there's attention being paid to the person who's lifting. And then we can adjust the coaching from there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because it's a terrible feeling to rack a weight and no one say anything. Because it's like, if that happened out here with my old crew, it would be like, did that look that scary and fucked up? That
Yeah.
So like, if you hear silence, it's like, oh fuck, how bad was that? But they've gotten really good. I'm really grateful for my guys, because they've been willing to accept sort of like my anal retentiveness about like how things are set up, how we do things. And now it's to the point where I've got 2 guys plus Val that I could say, like, set up the cabered bar with 4 chains. And they just do it, and I don't have to adjust anything. I don't have to change anything. Because you know how it's like, some people have 4 things touching, 4 links. Some have 2, whatever. It doesn't matter what it is as long as it's consistent. And now they've all got that. They all know what time we're going to start. They all know, like, the progression of, like, well, should I put a plate on or 2 plates? You know what I mean? They all know that stuff, but it's just taking some time.
What are a couple lifts that you've done that you'll take to your grave? In other words, people, I'm sure it's been the same with you. People told me my whole life, training is not going to do anything for you. They're obviously not correct, but
it's weird.
Yeah. But if you're on your deathbed, they've always told me on your deathbed, you're never going to think about this, the training. And I've been there and I have, there's certain things that, what are some of the lifts that you'll take to your grave?
Not to be like weird, but I think probably the biggest one for me was I handed out a 429 bench to my wife at semifinals, and that was, for me, watching that was like the coolest. That's one of the lifts that's like in my top 5 for sure, and I didn't even do it because we had seen 2 arm breaks that year, I think 3 on females with 400 plus pounds. She had crazy forearm pain for months, couldn't figure out what it was, got an MRI, like didn't know. Her best one board at the time was like 415, and she benched 429 on a third. So it was like, she's got kind of long arms, so she, like, when you hand out, you see her, like, she's really calm under weights, so she'll take it out and like adjust and shit, and she's a great bencher. So you hand it out and you're looking down and you can just see her elbows, like, and it's like, did I just hand out a catastrophic injury, basically? And then she benched it, and that was really fucking cool. There weren't as many women benching in the 4s at that time, active. So it was a really big bench at the time. I would say the 1065 was big for me to get on the board. The 1075 was bigger because I had squatted 1070 at 275 in New Hampshire, and it was like fucking this high, and I got destroyed on the internet. I don't know if you remember this, but the release of West Side versus the World, it was the weekend after I did 1075, a weight class down, and an APF meet was buried. And you walked over and you're like, hey man, I saw it was a good squat or whatever, way to like shove it in their face, or you said something to that nature, because I had gotten so much shit. So the 1075 was good. That's when I learned that I could take weights wherever I needed to in the moment. And then I pulled 771 to total 2,500 at APF Nationals. And I had done a meet 6 weeks before that, and bombed, squatted 11, bombed on bench in front of Louie. And it was my second meet after leaving. Like, everybody was there.
What went wrong?
Tight shirt, fucking fell off, like did one of these things, and like, it was like, Joe Bayless was the head judge. So it's like, if it was close, I feel like he would have given it, and it just was like, he just couldn't, and I would have called it too. But yeah, bombed there, and I had to do an APF meet to qualify for WPO supers that were the one that was on ESPN. So like 2 weeks before that first meet that I had bombed out of, I get a text message from Dave, hey man, you got to do an APF meet. And I'm like, fuck, when is it? Nationals, this. Oh, it's I get married on a Thursday. It's the Saturday after that. Like 2 days. Married in Massachusetts, meets in Michigan. And I'm like, fuck. So I'm in the bathroom and I'm just bummed, and Val comes in. She's like, what's wrong? I'm like, I guess WPO is not happening. Like, it's fucking 2 days after. She's like, well, let's reschedule the wedding. I was like, are you fucking serious? Like, so I had to call my mom. We rescheduled the wedding for like 2 weeks after. No pressure, right? My best total at the time was 2364. I go, open 1035. Got it, went 1102 or 1107, make it, go 1147, miss. Dave said, I was all pissed in the back. He's like, bro, I just like I fucked with your head. Like, I got you so confident with 1100 that you think you should have squatted 1147. You squatted 11 like it was nothing. You know, like he had kind of like made me feel like that was an easy weight. Went 2 for 3 on bench. My best pull at the time was 745. And we're in the back room before deadlifts, and I'm like, I got to pull 771 to total 25. And everyone's like laughing. My best 4-inch block pull was 765. So I opened with 7. I was tied with this dude, Alan Pilley. I opened with 7, make. He went 675 make. Then he went 720 something and missed it. So I went 738. Pull it, hold it at the top, like, yeah, motherfucker. Like, let's, like, I thought I just won nationals. Throw it down, whatever. And then he goes up on his 3rd. And I know that crew from Florida. I know they're good with their gear. So I'm like, he might know something I don't know. Like, so we went to 750, I think, to go above him. But you can change your deadlift, you know, like last minute there. So Dave was like, if he misses this, we're going to go 771. Just try to get it to your knees. Just try. You already have a 100-pound PR total. Like, just try. And so he misses. Dave sticks his head around. He goes, big one, right? So I'm getting in the chalk. And I missed deadlifts at the very top. And Val took my headphone out, and she said something like, I don't know if she said, like, you know, don't be a pussy, or she said, like, don't stop pulling, basically. And when I pulled it for 2,500-pound total, that qualified me for WPO. So that was a really, really big one.
What did it feel like when you locked that out?
It was wild because it was one of those ones where you're like, you're going, and you feel it start coming out of your hands. And I think earlier in my career, I would have just let it go. But I was like, just like keep lifting your head, and just like, it doesn't have to be in your palm. You just have to hold it and then follow it to the ground. And so I put it down, and it was just like, you know, you look, you get through, like, yeah, you know, screaming. Then I look, and there's Dave, like, and he screams something like, that's 2,500 pounds, bitch, or some shit like that. Get a big hug from him and everything. And Kovac squatted a world record the next day. It was a really cool. We were still at Westside when that happened in the night, and I think that severely pissed Lou off that I did that, because he had told me I wouldn't total more than 2350, and I went 2502. And I would say that the last biggest lift would be the single-ply world record.
Yeah.
1036. I weighed 258.
So why that? Why decide to do that?
So I saw Henry Thomason, to all the respect in the world to him, he's a legend. Great squatter. I saw he squatted 1035 in like an SPF meet in single ply, and I was like, and it was a world record at 275, and I was like, I feel like I could do that. Like, I've squatted 950 bare knee in 2-ply briefs. Like, I think I can do this. And so I talked to Dave about it. Dave is an Inzer guy, Inzer, and I just didn't want to fuck around with like the sizing, and like I just got on the phone with Titan, told him what I was gonna do. I was like, I'm gonna try and break a world record. These are my size, these are my numbers. Like, send me whatever you got. And so we did it. I didn't get sponsored or anything like that, but stuff showed up before the WPO Super Finals. I was gonna try and sneak one in before the one that was in Florida that year. I didn't end up doing it. Went to that meet, bombed on bench. Came back 2 weeks later, put on the single ply suit for the first time, squatted 1,005 in the gym. Put the shirt on, took like 510, touched, pressed it, all good. Put the suit back on, took 980 to a 1 inch below parallel chain. And then put the deadlift suit on and pulled something off a 2-inch mat. And then went to the meet, opened with 983, and went straight to 1036 and squatted it. My parents, who were like really, they're older and health stuff, so COVID was crazy for them. They flew out for this. This was like on the tail end of everything. They flew out, so they were there front row. The video's sick, like come out from under it and like give them both a big hug. I actually gave my dad, we had to cut the suit off because it was cutting into my legs and
Yeah.
shit. I ended up giving it to my old man, which he loved. But that was really special for me. The fucked up thing is, it was one of those ghost monos, so they have the rollers.
Yeah.
Fucking thing. Like, what is the point of that? Like,
I can tell you stories.
it's
too.
so annoying. So because of that, though, it's got the big underside of it, right? So I take my hooks in and I'm all the way out, right? But I'm not like a huge guy. So when I would come through, those were hitting my biceps, right? So I had to basically pick the bar and then rotate my shoulders under it,
Yeah.
right? So on the 1036, I went to take it out of the hooks and I just feel something in my shoulder crunch. And I'm like, that was not fucking good. Put it back in, take it out, squat it. We're still taking my knee wraps off. And I was like, something bad just happened in my shoulder. I don't know what it is, but I'm fucked up. Token bench, put my shirt on, got it, pulled 738, whatever, total like 23 something. And on the way home, like my whole arm is fucking numb, tingly. I'm like, I don't know what I did. So like a dumbass, like 2 days later, I go golfing, play 18 holes, like whatever. And for some reason, I was stuck on this thing where I was like, I should be more athletic and be able to train closer after a meet. I don't know why I was on that shit, but I went into my little garage gym and I just started doing pull-ups, which I never fucking do. By the following week, I couldn't bench an empty bar. I had like crazy nerve pain down my arm, like to the point where like I would bring it down and it would just stop. So they think basically what happened was like I shut something off in the back of my shoulder with the squat and then doing the pull-ups, like tacked down all my forearm shit and the nerve and all this stuff. But I had to basically, it took like 6 weeks or something to be able to bench to my chest.
Yeah.
But it was like, I kind of took, so you had a thing years ago about when you hurt your back, you'd start on the safety pins and kind of work your way down. So I was like, I could bench with a football bar or reverse grip, but straight bar I couldn't. So I just started going like straight bar, super wide, so shorter range of motion, 4 board, sets of 10, until I could do it with no pain, and then 3 board,
Yeah.
all the way down until I went to a plate and so on and so forth, and kind of just like went from there. But that particular lift was huge for me because I never thought I would have like a legitimate world record. And that's like there's no like caveat. It's just a single-ply 275 squat world record, period, the fucking end. And to just decide to do it and do it was really sick. However, to circle back to the beginning of our conversation, I always tell my clients, like, if you're in gear, you're in gear. If you're raw, you're raw. If you're multi, you're multi. If you're single, you're single. Like, riding 2 horses with one ass, you get hurt. And it's exactly what fucking happened to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
I went backwards for almost like 6 or 8 months
Yeah.
total, you know?
The funny story with the rollers is we tried that many years ago. I can't remember the year, but definitely 3-4 years before it actually came out and was what it was. And I had it for one of my UGSS things where we bring all the sponsors in. And so we have it on the monolift that when they come in. And man, the bitching, it was, I couldn't tell because I can only use a safety squat bar.
Oh, okay.
Right. So it's different, but
Yeah.
it's still like, God damn, because it wouldn't stay to let me wedge. It would fucking move all the time. And so they get in and they're just bitching it. By the time they got to 405, it was like, get these fucking things off. Like,
Take
where
the
are the
fucking
old
ups-
ones?
Yeah.
And it was bashing their arms because it is lower. It was fucking rack height up, which was another big one.
Yeah.
It was moving around so they couldn't wedge right. So when I saw the popularity start of that, I'm like, how in the 2 things are going through my mind is, first off, were all those people fucking idiots that came out and trained because they all squatted over $1,000.
Right.
There's 5 people squatting over $1,000 that day.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, so they're not stupid. They know what's going on.
Yeah.
But I'm like, I don't see, because the bench is fucked up too.
Sure.
Because now you're trying to like,
Oh, yeah, because they have it on the bench too, right?
yeah.
And it can go.
Yeah.
That's what
So
you
you're trying to, get everything set, and it's, unless somebody's holding, because you know how when you're getting set on if you're benching, I'm pushing the bar forward so it won't move anywhere on you.
Yes, exactly.
And it's but that was an interesting thing.
Trying to
where-
reinvent the wheel with something that's like, I get the idea behind
No,
it.
I get the idea.
But in application, it's no
Yeah,
good.
and it's because we used it was just UHMW. It wasn't like a stainless steel roller. It wasn't angled.
okay.
It was just UHMW that was welded in there, so it would spin and kind of go back and forth easier, which is kind of dumb because it's how you only got to scoot. Like
And if it's a big enough weight that you can't move it yourself, whoever's taking that weight has 4 of their own spotters on the platform that will fucking move it for them.
Yeah,
you know,
pretty much.
Yeah, that fucked my shoulder up good. If I saw one of those now, I would probably make him take the hooks all the way out and try to get my hands inside of them. You know what I'm saying? But it's like, yeah, that was an interesting thing. That was the last thing I thought would happen. Because with the single-ply stuff, I don't know. Obviously, you probably lifted that early on.
With it, yeah.
It's like one of those things where it's like, I've been squatting 1030 for years, but when I picked that up, I was like, I'm in fucking danger right now.
It's different.
Like I have no compression anywhere.
Yeah.
Like, and the funny thing was, like, as I was lowering it, like going, I'm like, am I going to come up with this? You know what I mean? Cause I had the biggest thing I had taken, it was 1,000 or 1,005. And I was like, I don't know if I'm going to even fucking stand up with this shit, because you're just getting so much less feedback from the equipment than in, like, with the canvas. It's like you're sitting, like pressure's going up. Like you can like feel like you're like, I'm almost there. And very rarely when you're fighting the pressure like that, are you not going to come out of the bottom. Like you're at least going to come out. With this, it's just like, I'm going to the hole, I guess. I don't know if I'm going to come up with it. Which was really fun for me because I hadn't been under a weight that scared me in a long time.
Yeah.
And it spooked me. And I was like, fuck yeah. Like, cause that's part of this. It should be scary.
Yeah.
Also with the single-ply stuff, just like a side note, like another reason why I wanted to jump into it is if bandy shirts became the norm, I think I would tend towards single-ply stuff, because single-ply people would never be down with those. And I don't have a big problem with them. I just don't have interest in them really. Because I have such a hard time in a bench shirt. For me, I would feel really goofy benching 640 in a poly and then getting in one of those and benching something bigger. So I would go in the other direction. If those were to become like the standard, which they might, who fucking knows? And I won't say I'll never ever get in one of those or whatever, but as it sits right now, they don't interest me to that point. So the single ply was a way for me to be like, okay, like I'm not going to go raw. I'm too old to go that way. I have too many dings, like whatever. But the single ply would, like, if that stuff became like the norm of multiply, I would definitely at least dabble with the single ply stuff a little more seriously.
All right.
Yeah.
With your online clients, what do you see in the last couple of years? What's been the biggest mistake that they make?
I would say,
I mean, there's a go-to, right? Like as soon as you see the issue, it's always that.
yeah, I would say the idea that more is better is probably something I see a lot of. More is better, and the misunderstanding that if you had a bad meet, all of that training was for nothing, and to change what you're doing.
Go into that one a little bit more.
So we hate excuses, right? You fucking hate excuses. I don't want to hear it. I don't fucking care. Just get better. But there are realistic things that happen. Spongy platform, shitty bars, shitty monolift, like all of these things, right? Bad day.
Yeah.
So if you have had a killer training cycle and you go to a meet and you have a bad meet, all that tells me is you're a bad competitor, or you had a fucking bad day, or there was circumstances outside of your control. But that doesn't mean the training was bad. The training was good. You were strong as fuck. You didn't, you know what I mean? And so I think one of the big mistakes I see is like that shit happens and everybody wants to change everything. They want to change everything. It's like, well, I don't know. You squatted a PR full gear in the gym or competition standard in the gym really easy. And then you went to a meet and you bombed on squats. So what fucking happened? Because I know you're not a special snowflake flower that needs his own specific training, because this shit works for everybody, right? Something else happened. And that something else could just be you had extra anxiety, you didn't sleep well, you fucked your drugs up, whatever it might be. But it doesn't take away from how good the training was leading up to that. And I see a lot of the, like, they don't know how to deal with like delayed gratification. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Like I bombed fucking 2 mutil-ply meets in a row, one of which being a fucking WPO meet, you know? And I didn't really, I altered some stuff, but I didn't throw it out and be like, well, I guess I'm going to RPE now. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
no, that's something that's always driven me crazy because I call it program hopping.
Yeah.
Is, you know, they'll be on a certain program, then it didn't pan out. So then instead of figuring out what part of that program went astray or what went bad, they dump it all. And it's like, this is so stupid because if we were to break this down to its basics, you got a squat, bench, deadlift, and total, the ability to put them all together. The total is kind of the meat, the ability to put them all together. Right? You don't have a total in the gym. There's no such fucking thing, right?
Yeah.
Right?
Preach.
Yeah, exactly. So you don't, right? So there's 4 main things. It's like, well, your bench went well, you know, the deadlift went well, your squat took a hit, and your total took a hit. So what you want to do is 50% of it you already got figured out.
Right.
You just want to get rid of the 50%. And actually more than 50% is figured out. I mean, the peak may have been wrong or a bad day, all these other things. But it amazes me that they'll say that they're serious or that they're all in, but then be willing to take everything that they learned and throw it away.
Yeah.
To start anew.
Yeah.
Like somebody who's really all into this would spend a fuck ton of time trying to figure out what went wrong.
Well, dude, like if you are fucking hell-bent on being a doctor and you want to be like a surgeon and you fail a test, are you going to be a fucking cook instead? No, you're going to figure out what the fuck you did wrong for that test. Because all a meet is a chance for you to test and express if your training cycle, if you did the right thing, and if you're able to do it on the day that you tried to do it on, right? So it's the same thing. If you have a bad day, like if you switch, like when it comes down to it, globally, all training is conjugated and all of it's linear, right? Like, you're changing, like someone might be changing from fucking 5 to 3 reps or changing their RPE from this to that or whatever, and we're changing bars. It's the same fucking thing, right? So when you take, and there's like segments of it, right? So we have like conjugate method, right? Like as we know it, right?
Yeah.
And then we have like linear periodization, block period, whatever, right? We have all those things. Let's say it takes, I think it probably takes someone like 4 years plus of serious training to figure out how conjugate will work for them baseline, right? Like that's whatever the thing is, right? So if you're in your fucking 8th month of conjugate and you have a bad meet and you decide you're going to go to RPE, guess what? It's going to take you another fucking 8 months to try to figure out what an RPE 7 even feels like. Never mind apply it perfectly in a peak to get you ready for that fucking meet. So when you ditch the program and the method, you're starting over. That's like what I don't understand. You have to relearn a whole, like you failed the fucking Spanish test and said, fuck this, and started French. Like, no, dude, figure out what you already are in this. Like you've already done this, you know it. Why are you going to start and do this other thing?
Well, it's crazy because it's, as you said, they're all interconnected.
Yeah.
Now, I think the easiest way to learn is to learn them independently to see how they're interconnected.
Yeah.
You know, as far as the periodization schemes, because, you know, you can take the RPE of a 7, right, and say, okay, that's really not conjugate. But if on the max effort day we want you to do triples, that's pretty much going to be an RPE 7, you know, so there's that.
There's value in that. Yeah, like I have a guy right now that I'm coaching that's a raw guy that is very strong, not super technical, and is coming from like an RPE type program, right? With like some conjugate stuff mixed in there. The fact that he knows the RPE stuff and that he's done it makes my job way easier.
Exactly.
Because I can say, because he needs more practice with the competition lifts, right?
Yeah.
So I can say, all right, we're going to do high bar, wide box squats, 8x3, you know, 4 chains, 50%, right? Short rests. And then you're going to do a 3x8 straight bar competition squat at like an RPE 6 to 7.
Yeah.
I don't have to fucking say anything else. He knows how to do that. And because he understands that at like a very good level, it makes my job a lot easier, even though the programming is like sort of nerdy and next level when you start mixing the two. It makes that higher level programming and coaching easier because he understands it the same way you would be.
Yeah, but see, but that's a testament to your job too, because your job is to understand all these things, right? So if they come in with that, instead of saying, "Oh, that's bullshit, that doesn't do anything," you can use that to your advantage.
Yes.
To make them a better lifter.
Yeah, and to their like to a lot of people's dismay, like I'm not just a conjugate guy, and I found that the linear stuff is really helpful even for the dudes in gear. And figuring out like how to apply those same things inside of our world. Like you said, like learning them separately and then applying them all together. Like, I don't know why I keep bringing this back to like language and shit, but if you had to teach a fucking Spanish population math and you didn't know math or Spanish, you wouldn't take a Spanish math class. You'd fucking take a Spanish class, a math class, and then use that to teach the people at the same time. You know what I'm saying? So learning all these different things and being able to apply them, I think people look at conjugate people like we're ride or die. Like this, it's funny because they think we're very dogmatic in how we train, but like realistically, we're the most open to the shit. You know what I mean? Like,
I know.
if you can give me a fucking good reason why a tempoed front squat fits into a mutil-ply program, I want to hear it because I'll fucking use it with my guys. I'll use it for me. But if you look at someone who runs a very strict, maybe SBD type programming and you say like you should wide stance box squat against chains, they're gonna look at you like you're fucking crazy. But we're the ones who are supposed to be like the dogmatic, like, no, that doesn't fit in there. It's like, no, we're the most open. Like people who like conjugate, that's like the base of the whole fucking thing. Is there's so much, like you look around in this fucking, there's so much ways to get strong. Why would I only use some of them because they fit into my particular thing? Like I want to use all of it. I think people get a little too cute with that sometimes, with using every possible thing.
Oh yeah.
But over time you can kind of, and certain people, like if you're coaching a certain person that's like, okay, they're not getting faster. They don't get fast. They're a grind type person. Well, then you just have them do a linear fucking bench program on their secondary bench day instead of having them do speed. No skin off my back. I don't fucking care. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, they're going to get better from that.
As long as they get better, yeah.
Yeah. And so, like, I've done different things inside of, like, the trigger warning brand of Conjugate where I have, like, bench, like 12-week bench programs for their secondary bench for people who are not people who get fast.
Yeah.
And it fits into a linear type thing.
Well, I think that comes around into, you can become so biased with your bias, right? That it actually hurts the person that you're helping.
Yeah.
Right? Because then you're trying to fit whoever that person is into a box they may not fit in.
Yeah.
Right? So then that's a disservice to that person.
Yeah.
You know, in protection of your own bias, which is kind of stupid.
Yeah. Something my dad coached me for years. And something he taught me early on was being able to admit fault as a coach. And to what you're saying right there, like if I'm too biased in what I think is the right way to train and I'm not open to ideas, people are going to trust me less by saying my idea was not optimal and your idea might actually work. Like I've got guys that are in my train, like the people that I train that come to me with ideas that are like, hey man, I wrote this thing. Like, what do you think of this? Like, do you think this is why I think it'll work? I want to put on a slingshot for an extra double at the end of my heavy to whatever. And this is why. I'm like, fuck yeah, dude, let's do it. And if you're right, you're fucking right. And that doesn't mean that I'm a bad coach. It means I'm a good coach because I'm willing to admit that what I was writing for you might not work, but like or for you, you know what I'm saying? But the ability to have that conversation and the knowledge of like the whole thing makes it easier for me to talk to that person and be like, okay, because I've had guys come to me with stuff and be like, dude, I've tried that. I know, like that's not the way.
Yeah.
But they trust me more because they know that I've have guys that run stuff way outside of what I normally would do, and they kind of use me as like a consulting person to kind of reel them in.
Are there any topics or questions that I didn't ask that you wanted to bring up or talk about?
So powerlifting culture is like a weird thing.
Yeah.
Because you can get really negative. And I don't want to be like the cheese ball, we should all get along thing. But it's really hard when you're in it. And I don't know if you've experienced this, but like when you're in it all the time, it's really easy to just be like annoyed with the noise. And I just want to say to people that like, if you're powerlifting and you don't like it and you don't like the culture, and you want to be negative about it, you should quit because we don't want you. And if you hate it so much, fucking show me the guy with the gun to your head making you do this. because nobody's getting fucking paid. And for a lot of people, this is an outlet and a way to express themselves, and a way for them to be happy and have a purpose in life and have something that they're really passionate about. And if what you're bringing to the sport is negativity and bitching about the sport, you should take up thumb wrestling and go fuck yourself, because you're doing everyone a disservice, including yourself. Like, there are many people who have made their bag off of shitting on powerlifting while being in powerlifting, and that's the weirdest fucking thing in the world to me. So it's like, if you're a person who powerlifts and you sit there and talk about how whack it is all the time, but you're not doing anything to make it better, I have no time for you, because having discussions about what's wrong with it is fine as long as you're looking for a solution. But sitting here and saying that everything about it sucks while being amongst it seems like a big waste of time to me. And I see it a lot. So like, I just urge people, we're like, if you're in this and you want it to be better, then let's get it better. And let's do whatever it is you think that we need to do. But if you're in this just to bitch, get a different fucking hobby.
Well, I think my pushback on that is better for whom, right? Because it's where I think a lot of things actually get lost is, on who's the end user, right? So it's, I just had this conversation the other day with somebody in a different industry, a bodybuilding industry, but the same thing, because it's a lot of these industries can be perceived as a toxic waste dump, right? And that's true. Like, because a lot of those things are the political crap's going to get pointed out. This can be this rule, whatever. There's always something to bitch about. I know this for a fact. I've been in the sport since fucking 84, and the bitching has never stopped, right? People's squats are being called high over the telephone. I remember when Hatfield squatted 1,000 or whatever it was, the guy who owned my gym was on the fucking telephone, a rotary telephone, speaking to somebody else who was there at the meet the day beforehand, being told the squat was high as fuck.
Yeah.
Right.
With no video to prove either way.
No, there was no fucking video at all.
Yeah.
It was a telephone, rotary telephone.
Yeah.
And then it was, an image in Powerlifting USA. Oh, you see that image? That squat was high as fuck. It's a picture.
Yeah, where in the squat was it?
Exactly. So it's none of these. It's all the same. It's gotten bigger. So the voices are bigger, the conversations are bigger. But what gets lost at the end of the day is that's this. Like it's a city, and that's all the fucking smog and all the shit that's in there. There's still people there.
Yeah.
And those people are the people that may be your clients, right?
Yeah.
Or even the people that you're speaking about, their clients, right? Those clients are getting stronger each week. They're breaking records. They're feeling better about themselves.
Yeah.
Their lives are being changed by being in the gym.
100%.
Where if it's bodybuilding, whoever's following this bodybuilding program, that might be what's getting them in the gym week after week after week to keep them going.
Sure.
That's motivating them. And at the end of the day, that base, those people, those are in the hundreds of thousands and the millions, and they're the quiet majority who fucking love this stuff.
Yeah.
And don't give a shit about any of this stuff.
Yeah.
They probably don't even know about it.
I was just going to say they're not even aware.
They're not even aware. So the attention needs to be, if it's somebody that has a hard time with the criticism or somebody that sees all this other stuff and that's all they're focusing on, then they're focusing on the wrong thing.
Yeah.
And it's not going to help their business either, because when they're focusing on that person, and the change that it's made, look at the change that training's made in your life.
Yeah.
And we just spoke about it for 2.5 hours or whatever it's been.
Yeah.
A significant change. You could be dead. You could be in rehab, right? You could be fucking anywhere, jail.
Sure.
All these different places, but no, you're here now training people both online and in a gym.
Yeah.
And you got there through this.
Yeah.
You didn't get there through the smog. You got there through the fucking people.
Through the people, yeah.
Helping the people, right? So now when that becomes what the focus is, then you can sit back and think, what? Fuck, I'm blessed that I'm able to do this.
Yeah. 100%.
And then help other people, because you don't know the difference that can make in that person's life until 20, 30 years down the line.
Yeah.
You just don't know. So that's where I get, and we all get sucked in.
Oh, yeah.
Like, they all get sucked in. I get sucked in. Everybody gets sucked in. I try to avoid it like the plague, but I get sucked
It's
in.
inevitable because we're surrounded by it.
Because yes, you are.
Yeah.
But I always have to ground to myself.
Yeah.
And this becomes so much harder, and you're going to see a difference now because you have a physical gym.
Mm-hmm.
This becomes way, way harder when you're only online, because when you're only online,
Yeah.
the attaboys, the hey, thank you, thank you for what that is that's so tiny.
Yeah.
It's so the criticism is huge, as you've been through.
Yeah.
So for every compliment you may get, you've already received 5,000 negative comments.
Right.
For each one, right? That is the internet.
Yeah.
That is online, and it becomes very hard to operate in that environment from an educational side, from wanting to help people side. There's so many times you're like, what the fuck am I even bothering for?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, a daily, weekly thing. It's
Yeah.
just now when you're in person with these people, you see them walk in, you see this, you see them grow
Yeah.
up, you see all these things change, and it becomes so much different.
Yeah, the way that kids walk differently into the gym, I was talking to him about. We did like a small interview for one of the kids for a class. He had to write like an article or whatever, and he said, what's your favorite part about owning the gym? And the physical gym, man, my favorite part is watching like a person, no matter what age they are, change how they walk. And it's like a subtle thing.
Mm-hmm.
But like all of a sudden they walk with their chest up a little bit more. They're a little more confident in their social interactions, whatever it may be. And it's all because of the lifting of the weights.
Yes. And see that my point is you're also doing that online.
Yeah.
But you don't see it.
No, yeah, and it's different because it's like you said, a quiet majority is very happy. And a loud minority is very fucking hard to deal with, because on the internet, like you said, if you have 500 comments and they're all like, you're the best, you're the thing, and there's 3 that are like, you suck, you should quit, those ones seem to be like boldened.
Mm-hmm.
I've gotten better about it. I've made posts in the past. I used to get really sucked into the internet shit and do the like ticky-tacky bullshit. I don't anymore, but I've made posts before where like right now, this is the goal. Like people will say like golden age of powerlifting, no. We're in it right now because the weights have never been bigger. The sport has never fucking been bigger. Like it just is, we're in it right now. So you got to look around and be like, I said it to Lou one time. He did not like this, but he said, he was at breakfast and he was saying like, well, we used to have guys in here that, they benched this and they were stronger than all you guys, da, 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 da. And I like didn't even look up from my meal. I was so irritated by it. I was like, well, if they were so strong, then why aren't they on the board anymore? Because, and it might have been an asshole thing to say, but they're not stronger than us because we're on the board now. And right now, powerlifting culture is exploding so much. Multiply is bigger, raw is bigger. We are in the golden age. So I don't want what I'm saying to be like me saying that it's a negative place. I'm saying that the people who are negative within it should find another hobby, because
most definitely
there is like, because if you looked online and just saw if you didn't know powerlifting, you looked online, you'd think there were fights at every fucking meet.
Well, here's
and
the
there
thing.
never is.
Like, the internet's not real, right? So it's not. So you look at your own gym, right? You might have one negative asshole here and there,
Sure,
and then they kind of weed themselves out.
Yep.
It's the opposite online, right? Right. So online, those negative assholes are perceived as everybody that's in the gym, but it's not the case. It's still that very small number. It's 2 members out of 500 that you may have.
Right.
That's all it is, but that's all you see. So you think that it's 498, you know, and not the 2.
What did you say one time? You were talking about how like you can't tell if like it's hard because you end up in a like kind of an echo chamber where it's like you might think that Pokemon is like the hottest thing ever that's happening, but it's only because you follow only Pokemon accounts.
Yes.
And it's like the same thing with powerlifting. If like all you're seeing is negative things that piss you off, you're fucking following the wrong people.
You don't follow those people.
Yeah, and you can curate what you see. It's not like it is in real, like with the internet, because you said like it's not, this isn't based in reality, you know? So like we can change what we view on there just by following people that we like and not following people that we don't like and following people that make us feel good and not, you know what I'm saying? It's really hard because the barrier for entry is so low now.
It is, and the other,
which is good.
Yeah, it is. It's good.
Yeah,
it's good. The problem is on a interpersonal level. The problem is people are not able to separate the lifts from themselves, right? So if you put a lift online, whatever the lift is, and it just gets blasted, you can't take that as a personal attack,
right.
But everybody does.
Yeah,
they're attacking a lift.
Yeah.
Now, if it's a, there's the caveats. Like if it's a fucking yoke bar, high box gym squat, what is there to attack? It's a stupid thing, right? Now, if it's a competitive squat, I can see that it's been a part of the sport since the beginning of time, but that doesn't mean that they're saying that you're a bad person or this or that or that. But that's perceived that way, and that's where it comes back on the person who's actually posting things to understand that. Okay, look, they think this is high, or they weren't there. It comes with the sport. And granted that you can post a high squat if you have seen yourself, right? And
yes, sir.
Blasted to hell.
Destroyed.
Blasted to hell. Thousands of comments, I'm sure. Or you can post one that's solid and get fucking 2 comments, right? So my thing is, if you're actually really trying to create an internet business and internet presence, squat fucking high, because it brings more attention.
I think Donnie said that shit, right? Like he wanted to have the most controversial squat or controversial total and then leave the sport or whatever. And he's like, I want to take a huge high squat and then bounce from the sport or whatever. And it's so funny because it's one of those things where like, he owned that. I love that. You know what I mean? And I don't think that squat was that bad, but I wasn't there. That's the thing is internet makes people feel like they have a voice when they maybe shouldn't. But by the same token, dude, like the internet has paid my bills, has made me able to come out here, has made it possible for me to meet a lot of people. So I do try to keep that in perspective as well, that like because of the internet, I have a big reach. And I can talk to all these people. I can meet all these people. I can interact with you. And people have an opportunity to interact with someone like you who's been doing this for fucking a million years, right? And it gives them the chance to learn, where a lot of maybe sort of like older, not open to the idea guys will hate how accessible the information is now, but it's a good thing.
No, it's a good thing. I mean, it's there.
They should try to. There's like a tipping point where it's like you should learn some shit on your own. You know what I mean? And kind of figure it out. But the access to information is so high now that like, if you are training stupidly, that is your fault, because there's so many ways to train smart and so many people who are willing to help you.
Yes. Oh, 100%. It's there's good and bad of everything. That's just the nature of life. A lot of people seem to think that there should only be good with no bad, where you still have to clean the toilet of your gym. You still have to take the fucking trash out. You still walk through there and ask yourself, why in the fuck is there a dip cup sitting here? You know what I'm saying? Someone's got a spit cup. They just fucking, this is just part
real
of it.
talk. Yeah. Dude.
Yeah. It's just the real shit. Like this motherfucker left the weights on the leg press again. Like my job is not to clean up people's shit, but it is.
The wet coffee mug ring on the reverse hyper.
Yeah, exactly.
The most expensive tabletop of all time. Fuck that. Do you mind if I pump some of my stuff?
No, go ahead.
So yeah, I have a Patreon page, which is like a subscription website. And basically I think that a lot of people don't understand the amount of content that I have on there. I have 102 weeks of programming on there. There's levels from $3.50 a month to $40 a month, and you can get programming. You can get I do a Road to the WPO vlog, which shows all my training. I do a Coach the Coach vlog series, which I film all 4 of my lifts for the week and do a voiceover what I see with it, and then see what other people see, because coaching obviously helps people learn. Do Mental Monday extendeds on there, and then I do a training vlog, time capsule training, which I'll take like an old video and talk about what was going on, what was right, what was wrong in my training at the time, and kind of like let it fly a little bit more than I do on the Instagram, as far as like letting people see under the hood. And it's just the most cost-effective way to get solid conjugate programming that's not a template or that's not free. It gives you a little bit more access to me. And then also like, I have different levels of coaching and shit, and obviously the apparel and everything that we're selling. But yeah, so I just wanted to put that out there because
How do they get a hold of you for the coaching?
Just Trigger Warning Conjugate, Instagram, or my personal Instagram. So Anthony CW13 or trigger_warning_conjugate. We have I did a podcast. I have 150 episodes with all different strength athletes and we do musicians. I've had a bunch of different folks on there.
And I've listened to a bunch of your podcasts. Let's put it this way. Anybody that I've had as a guest that you've had on your podcast, I've listened to.
Oh, cool.
Every
Hell
single
yeah,
one.
dude. I
Every
appreciate
single
that.
one. Yeah,
I appreciate that. Yeah. So
it's good.
I think that, and I just want to say also thank you again for having me on here. I really appreciate it. It's it's weird that all these people that I watched on YouTube videos years ago, are my peers now. And it feels crazy. And I'm just super grateful, that I've gotten a chance to do this thing that for some reason I was good at it. And for some reason, I've been accepted into the community by most of the people and people that I've looked up to for a long time. I can have relationships with them. So I just wanted to thank you for having me on here, man. Cause I posted about it. If 2014 me saw me now, they wouldn't fucking believe it.
No, this is great. You're doing good things, man. Keep doing it.
Thank you very much, man.
Guys, we are done.
Hell yeah.